Final Fantasy X. This RPG really holds a special place in my heart. The emotional story, the memorable characters, the incredible atmosphere and world building, and it has some pretty well-designed turn-based combat, with rigidly designed characters that perform specific roles in battle. So, I decided to throw that all out the window and try playing through the game with each character using a random build. Welcome to the Random Sphere Grid Challenge. Note, this is not a no sphere grid run. What I will be doing here is taking every member of the party and allowing them to go down random paths on the grid, picking up whatever they find. This is not accomplished with a mod or program, it's happening on a vanilla copy of the PS4 version. I'm actually rolling dice on a dice roller app. Here's an example to help illustrate how it works. Kimari here has 3 paths he can go down. I use 12 o'clock as my starting point and go clockwise, labeling each path a number. So you can see here paths 1, 2, and 3. I roll a die, in this case a d3, and whatever number comes up is where I go. No fudging dice, so going in circles or towards dead ends is totally possible. Lock nodes, if a key sphere is available, are also counted as paths. And this is all happening on the Expert Sphere Grid because it allows for more chaos. Every character starts with free access to someone else's grid. The results? Some characters are going to turn out very different from how they usually would. The goal is to make my strategic choices more meaningful than just use Waka because thing can fly, or use Lulu because magic. I need to think about who has what abilities, how high their stats are, and maybe most importantly, what would be most useful in a given battle. The game will get progressively more difficult, since even a no sphere grid run is pretty easy for the first dozen or so hours, but it will spike pretty hard. Full disclosure, this is a compiled re-release of a series that I finished a while back. It was actually the first challenge series I did on this channel. As a result, there are some rough edges, especially in terms of sound quality. I made some improvements with this release, but it's still a bit uneven. There are no major changes in the content of the video though, so if you watch the original series as a released, then this should be just about the same. But hey, maybe you'd like to see it again? Well, with the explanation out of the way, let's get started with the challenge. Here is our lovable protagonist, who we will be calling RNG. Enjoy! RNG is having a typical day as an ultra-talented sports prodigy, when, seems some footage is missing here. Well, it seems like the city is under attack or something. So, RNG meets up with his much older friend Oren, and the two start to flee down the interstate away from the crisis. Or maybe towards it. It seems like they might be going the wrong way. After they run into some creepy monsters, it becomes apparent that RNG is not up to the task of fighting these guys. So, Oren has to give him a sword and tell him how to use it. They battle the monsters, cutting the ones that matter and running, until they run into a really big one, a sin spawn. After Oren totally shows off how much stronger he is, they beat up the sin spawn. And then Oren totally throws RNG under the bus by tossing him inside the big monster's mouth, or whatever that large orifice is supposed to be. RNG wakes up cold and wet in some strange dark place. He swims around for a little while until suddenly another horrible monster attacks. What a bad day this is turning out to be. After getting punched a few times with punches that do suspiciously exactly half of his remaining HP per hit, he decides this isn't at all worth it and bails. A narrow escape leaves him trapped in a cold dungeon, and he's very cold and hungry.
I need food!
RNG builds a fire and tries to get some shut-eye, then has a lame dream about being chastised by an older male figure. Get used to this, it happens a lot. After being rudely awakened by another ugly monster, he tries to fight, but things are going slow. That's when the wall suddenly explodes, and some big buff dudes and a small underage girl walk in, looking even scarier than the monster. But they're friendly, I guess? Because the girl runs over and starts throwing grenades at the monster. After they defeat their foe, things are looking up. RNG finally found a friend. Or so he thought, because then he gets punched in the gut and kidnapped. He wakes up on a rusty salvage ship in the middle of the ocean. After playing charades, he gets convinced to go for a swim with the underage girl and happily agrees.
At this point, we get the tutorial for the sphere grid and can finally make some choices. When we finally get control again, we go straight into RNG's sphere grid and roll the dice for the first time. The result? RNG's immediately breaks away from his own sphere grid and heads down towards Kimari's. As we only have the one sphere level with RNG's and none for Mysterious Girl, we move on into the deep water. The pair head down into the ocean together and fight some fish. As they explore the strange ruins at the bottom of the ocean, they run into a horrible squid monster that attacks them. They use some really impressive teamwork to do a pincer attack and pelt it with grenades, defeating it before it could do too much damage. After returning to the ship triumphant, finally RNG's gets some food. And suddenly, the big monster attacks again and knocks him right into the ocean, where he passes out and wakes up in a completely different place. RNG's wakes up floating face down on a lush sandy beach, and suddenly gets smacked in the head with a ball. Being the sports prodigy that he is, his first instinct is to show off how talented he is, and he sends it back with an epic shot. The guys on the beach are super impressed. After swimming to shore, the guy with the big hair invites RNG's to his house to eat some more food, an offer which he can't refuse. We learn this guy is named Waka, and he is the coach of the local Blitzball team. Since Blitzball is the only thing RNG's cares about in this world, he realizes his best bet is to play with these guys, so at least he has some function in society. When the guys make it to the nearest town, Waka asks RNG's to present himself to the summoner. In attempting to do so, he learns that he isn't allowed to visit the summoner, because she's in the temple and normies can't go inside. So he goes to bed. After a nice nap, RNG's hears from Waka about how the summoner hasn't come out for several days now. Showing obvious concern for this stranger's life, he flagrantly ignores social norms by running inside the temple.
Like I care!
Solving some puzzles with some balls, he makes his way deeper until he reaches the deepest chamber, where he meets even stranger characters, a busty goth girl with a perpetual scowl on her face, and Lion Papa. After being scolded for breaking the law by entering this temple without permission, suddenly the door opens and a person emerges from the deepest chamber. It's a cute girl! They go outside and ask the girl to do the cool thing, and that's when she does some magic stuff and a giant bird monster comes out of nowhere. But I guess it's her friend or something, so it's cool. We decide not to rename Aeons on this run, so we stick with the typical name Valefor this time. We learn the cute girl's name is Yuna and that she is a summoner, and apparently summoners are kind of a big deal, like talented sports prodigy tier big deal. After some awkward flirting, RNG's goes to bed and has another lame dream where he gets made fun of. Waking up the next day, RNG's learns he is riding the same boat as Yuna and her guardians, so he sets out to cross the island together. At this point, we get some mandatory tutorials. None of them are a particular threat, and they aren't really meant to be. The battle with Kimari goes pretty well even. Also, I realized before I left that I forgot to get Valefor's other overdrive, so I headed back to get that. Finally, after getting near the end of the area, I decided to stay and fight a few battles just to get some levels and actually do something with this challenge. The results after a short grind: RNG's still moving into Kimari's grid, and he learns Jinx and Lancet. Lulu just stays on her own track. Waka stays on his own track as well. I decide that even if someone is not going down a particular route, if they can reach the node from their position, it's fair game. So Yuna picks up Extractability right next to her starting position. Then she goes down into her own grid to pick up some null spells. Now it's time for our crew to board the ship and head over to the next location. They say their goodbyes, and the ship sets sail. But shortly after that, the big monster comes back. Sin. RNG's and the others fight off a giant sin fin and some sin scales. Even Kimari joins in on the fun. Once the battle is over, RNG's is knocked into the water, and Waka has to come to his rescue. A pretty tense battle later, and they come out on top. But the nearby village of Kilika isn't so lucky, and the town is basically wiped off the map. The group visits the town and Yuna performs her duty, the sending ceremony, sending the souls of the recently departed to the afterlife, called the Far Plane. The next day, RNG manages to save a little girl before she falls into the ocean. He gets rewarded with a single ether for his efforts. The boys are getting ready to pray for victory at the Kilika Temple and head off into the jungle. Almost immediately, Kimari gets his tutorial for learning blue magic, so I stock the free overdrive and dispatch the enemy like normal. Now, a short grind while exploring the jungle and picking up all the loot. During this grind, Waka finally deviates from his route and starts heading up into Oren's grid. We also make the initial choice for Kimari, which results in him heading upwards towards RNG's grid. We see RNG getting close to where Yuna started. Maybe he will end up a healer? After some leveling, the crew fight the big bad boss of the forest, Lord Ochu. Waka flubs his overdrive as per usual. Yuna and RNG spin their wheels for a little while, doing basically nothing, while Lulu pumps some magical iron. Once Lulu starts going off, that's when some real progress starts being made. Sick of all this fire, Lord Ochu goes to sleep to try to heal himself up. Now, Yuna shows off why she's really there, and summons Valefor. Since Valefor is flying, he is immune to the earthquake retaliation strike from being woken up. So Valefor is pretty safe to just do as much damage as he can to this thing. When things are looking spicy for Valefor, Yuna dismisses him and Lulu comes back in to finish the job with her fire. Yuna gets a good smack in with her stick once for good measure though. Easy winnings. The local forest rangers are very impressed. Now, everybody heads up to the temple together, but that's when disaster strikes. The crew come up against a sin spawn. I'll be completely honest, I was using Jinx, a lot at this point in the game, because I didn't yet know it's actually the worst ability in the game. My understanding of the luck stat was that it affected both accuracy and evasion, as well as crit rate, but I wasn't aware that when using Jinx, it does not in fact lower enemy luck stat. It just raises the chances of getting a crit on that enemy, as well as lowering their evasion. Accuracy is not affected, which was actually the main reason I was even using it. I thought, stacked with Dark Attack from Waka, it would make enemies basically never hit. Anyway, terrible misunderstanding of game mechanics aside, this boss goes pretty much as usual. Once again, Valefor comes in for some action. Valefor is immune to poison, which means the counter when the boss comes out of its shell doesn't affect it. Since the boss is also weak to fire, Valefor used fire magic to do as much damage as possible. Finally, Valefor gets the kill and the crew move on to the temple. Now, they run into some typical high school bullies in flamboyant purple uniforms. RNG gets unusually flustered when he's around bullies. It's his daddy issues, I guess. Similarly, not long into the temple, Yuna is subjected to her own bully in the form of Summoner Donna. How does this outfit stay on anyway? The crew go down into the cloister, but leave RNG up top as he isn't allowed inside. Then, Bully Donna comes back and does her thing, sending RNG down the elevator anyway. Well, since I'm already at the bottom of this long elevator, might as well just go inside, right? Not like I could just wait for the elevator to come back down and go up again, or wait at the entrance until everybody else comes back out. Nope, couldn't possibly do that. Breaking the law is the only viable option. Another ball puzzle later, RNG makes it to the inner chamber where he is once again chastised for his behavior. They walk away with the real reward, a new Aeon in the form of Ifrit. RNG starts putting two and two together when he sees how popular Yuna is. Can he really be a superstar when this girl is hogging all the limelight? He has to scream out in anguish while coming to terms with these feelings.
Ah!
The crew board a ship to the next location, the Blitzball city of Luca. While on the ship, RNG practices his blitz technique while fighting lingering daddy issues, and we pick up the ever-important blitz skill Jet Shot, which will be very handy later. Arriving in Luca, RNG is impressed with how big and lively this city is compared to the backwater island and ruined jungle town he visited up to now. The announcers are hyping up the teams arriving in Luca, and they really go hard in playing up the Luca goers and playing down the homeboys. RNG is having none of that and makes a huge ass of himself in order to clap back. Everybody is excited when they hear the news that the president himself is coming to watch sport ball with all the normies. So the crew go to see him, and when they get there, they see a giant prick instead. RNGesus gets some real creeper vibes from this fella, for good reason. While preparing for the Blitzball tournament, suddenly Yuna runs in and tells RNGesus that his old pal Auron is hanging around nearby. Excited to see his older male friend, he immediately bails on the game to go find him. While running around with Yuna, he tries to teach her how to whistle, just in case they get separated. When they finally reach the cafe that Auron is supposed to be hanging out at, they see he is nowhere to be found. Instead, Kimari runs into some old high school bullies of his own. RNGesus once again gets hot under the collar, seeing his lion papa being harassed. It is at this point that we hear Yuna is missing. While RNGesus was hyping up Kimari, some Albed Blitzers kidnapped her as collateral to guarantee their win. Funny, because the actual best team in the league is the Albed Sykes, as anybody who has tried to score against Nimruk knows. Lulu, Kimari, and RNGesus run off to try and rescue Yuna from her captors on the docks, fighting little stabby robots along the way. Meanwhile, Waka is trying to hold it together long enough for them to complete their mission without losing the game. When they finally board the Albed ship, they fight a big Blitzball-themed robot called the Obliterator. RNGesus gets the bright idea to use the nearby crane to deal some hefty damage to it. I didn't realize how close it was to being dead, so I was spending a lot of wasted turns using buffs and such, only to accidentally kill it with a melee hit from RNGesus. After rescuing Yuna, who apparently didn't need much help to begin with, RNGesus starts reminiscing about his time on the Albed scavenger ship. Yuna then reveals the bombshell. She is actually part Albed too. This doesn't seem to leave much impact on RNGesus, but Lulu rightly warns him to keep this particular revelation a secret. Lulu uses her goth magic to signal Waka that Yuna is safe, leaving room for Waka to pull a pretty impressive last-second shot that wins the game for the Aurochs. Unfortunately, it was a bit of a rough time, so he's too beat up to play the final match. Time for RNGesus to sub in and show off what makes him a true sports prodigy. As the announcers continue to talk smack about our heroes, Auron approaches the stadium as stoic and cool as he possibly can manage. RNGesus and the team line up to get ready to start the match, and the goers do the same, except they're assholes about it. And blitz off! As the game starts, Jasu quickly gets his hands on the ball and passes it to RNGesus, who goes for an early shot. And goal! Only 1 minute in, and they're already leading. Starting again, the goers are driving the ball deep into enemy territory and try to shoot against 3 defenders. It goes predictably terribly. Jasu once again gets the ball into RNGesus' hands, who takes it as close as he can to the Luca goal. Unfortunately, this time he bit off a little more than he could chew. They manage to block the ball and get it back, but Dato quickly snatches it and goes for the goal himself. It's a bit of a back and forth as the goers take the ball again and pass it across the court. They keep passing the ball around, eating up as much time as possible before getting the ball to Bixen, who is by far the best shooter on the team. And this is not great for poor Keepa, who can't handle that strong of a shot and lets one in. The next toss-up puts the ball in Letty's hands, and he passes it to RNGesus, but then the clock hits halftime and we break for a quick locker room pep talk.
Shoot like crazy!
No!
Before the second half, RNGesus equips the powerful Ject shot. With the scores tied, we start with Letty getting the ball in the blitz-off. He puts it in RNGesus' hands, who runs the ball down court to the Luca goal. Breaking to Belgerda, he uses Ject shot to remove the other blockers, and soundly gets another goal with no issues whatsoever. Now, the goers get the ball and their forward starts running it into the Aurochs' defense. They then pass it back and forth a few times, for seemingly no reason. When they're behind, it seems a strange strategy to try and run out the clock. RNGesus gets his hands on the ball after a fumble, but there isn't much he can accomplish this far from the goal, so he shoots pretty fruitlessly and the blocker catches it. That's when, suddenly, the game is interrupted by cheering from the crowd. With 2 minutes left in the game, and the goers down 2-1, the crowd starts calling out, "Waka, Waka, Waka." RNGesus knows this isn't his moment, so he bows out to let Waka take the spotlight in the last game of his career.
To be honest, I did kind of feel left out, but it really was the Oryx and Waka show after all.
Waka joins the game, fresh and ready to go for the last 2 minutes of the tournament. Blitzoff ends with Letty getting the ball. Letty quickly passes it to Waka, who swims all the way down court to the Luca side and does a powerful Venom shot, blasting right past his blocker and getting another goal. Now leading 3-1 with only a minute left, the tournament is almost assuredly won for the Aurochs. They just need to run out the clock. And the goers are more than happy to waste time for them by doing horrible shots through multiple blockers. At the end, Jasu gets the ball and just runs it around for a few seconds to cap off the game. A resounding victory for the Besaid Aurochs, and a rather perfect knocking down a peg for the cocky Luca goers, who would never recover. They become the worst team in the league for the rest of the game. RNG comes out to meet up with Waka and congratulate him, when suddenly screams are heard and some ugly fish monsters appear. Now, the two of them have to battle their way out of the Blitz arena, taking out fish one by one. At this point, RNG is too weak to one-hit kill a fish without a critical hit, and Waka is the same, which means both of them need to crit hit to successfully defeat one. It makes this rather long sequence of constantly respawning fish feel like an eternity. Since RNG recently entered Lulu's grid, I attempted to use Blizzard and see if his magic was better than his melee, and boy, it sure wasn't. Realizing I didn't have much choice but to just push through with weak melee attacks, I try to keep damage to a minimum by guarding with Waka when there isn't time to get a kill. Unfortunately, my big mistake is that I assume there is a chance to heal between this long battle and the next one. There isn't, so my finishing this battle with low HP with both Waka and RNG ends up being a huge liability. After the fish battle, we see Auron finally making his first move. A dragon comes strutting out, and Auron is just like, "I'm too cool for this," and slaps him silly in one hit. Waka and RNG are both surprised to see Auron, but a fight is just around the corner, with RNG starting the fight at just 2 HP. So I'm forced to spend the first turn healing. After that, I set up a few debuffs on the big bird. Once again, I waste turns with Jinx, thinking it lowers accuracy, but otherwise just hit hard with Waka and Auron. Except for the early high potion on RNG, the battle with Garuda goes pretty well, and I was never in danger at any other point. Fiends continue to rampage in the Blitzball arena, and that's when Big Creeper shows up and summons his big mommy mummy to take them all down. With everybody safe, things calm down and the party reorganizes to figure out the next steps. Waka gives up his trophy to the rest of the team and says his goodbyes. RNG throws a hissy fit at Auron, really showing how cool and mature he is.
I'm telling you, it's all your fault!
That's when the bombshell is dropped.
It is. Sin is Ject.
Auron says he will offer his services as a guardian to Yuna and convinces RNG to tag along as well. Yuna decides to pull RNG aside and show off her whistling skills. And that's when the famous scene happens. No memes here, everybody knows them anyway. So before I head off to Mihen High Road, I decide to do a little blitzball. I start by heading back into Luca to pick up some new players. Not really savvy on who is or isn't good yet, I just poke around and see who is available. First, I find Jumal in the courtyard. I sign him, then keep moving. Next up, I find Shami on the bridge. I grab her too. And finally, I find Zealots by the theater. Now with 3 new players, I am informed the team can only hold 8 and someone needs to go. Sorry, Keepa. I check out my new crew and set up my base roster for the team going forward. I have RNG in left forward as usual, with Shami opposite him on the right. Then I put Dato in the mid position. Next, I have Jasu and Zealots take up defense. And finally, Jumal as goalie. Now, we start blitzing and leveling these guys up. They'll be a decent team before I'm through. The high road is a pretty lengthy straight road with tons of NPCs to meet and talk to. I quickly discover that many of them give items just to support Yuna, so I make a habit of talking to literally everybody who walks by. Shortly into the high road, we get the first battle, and Auron shows what he's good at, armored foes. With the tutorial out of the way, I keep moving down the road, fighting every battle I get into. For this run, because I want to keep leveling and moving around the grid, I will be avoiding escapes unless absolutely necessary for survival. The team runs into another summoner along the way named Belgamine. For this first summon duel against Belgamine, I make a pretty big mistake. I summon and use Valefor's Overdrive right off the bat, which gives Belgamine's Ifrit several turns in a row to pummel me. Ultimately, my Valefor goes down and I lose. Fortunately, this is an optional battle, and also gives rewards whether you win or lose, so I decide to live with the loss and move on. The party continues down the road, and RNGesus just can't help himself when he sees a Blitzball sitting on the ground and kicks it as hard as humanly possible into the horizon. The nearby kid who owns the ball is not very pleased to see this. Oops. Some more sphere grid action. RNGesus gets further along into Lulu's grid, picking up a couple more spells. His magic stat still sucks though. Wakka gets a pretty hefty strength boost in Auron's grid, and Auron makes his first moves, going towards RNGesus' grid to start with. Kimahri doesn't get a whole lot, but is making some progress towards RNGesus' grid as well. Hopefully one of them gets haste soon. Lulu refuses to get off her own grid, so she's as vanilla as they come. Yuna learns Life, which will probably come in handy later. Some more battles along the road leads to more levels, but the situation stays much the same as before. Kimahri indeed will be getting haste shortly though, after confirming his route, and Yuna picks up Prey finally. That's a pretty big get, I think. After getting the last of the basic magic spells, RNGesus heads back to the nearest fork and confirms his route into Lulu's grid. So hope he gets some magic soon. Halfway down the road, the team arrives at a travel agency run by an Albed capitalist. Wakka is none too pleased, as a certified racist against Albed, but Auron rightly calls him out for his antiquated views. Before heading to bed for the night, RNGesus bonds with Yuna while viewing the sunset outside the travel agency. In the morning, it's time to prepare for a doozy of a fight. Hearing some commotion outside, the team heads out and finds the chocobos going absolutely crazy, and some ugly monsters sucking them down like chicky nuggies. This is the chocobo eater, and I was woefully underprepared for this one. Once again, I try using RNGesus' magic. Not at all worth it. Barely scratches the thing. Lulu shows him how it's done, doing more than 5 times the damage with the same spell. They get pushed to the edge of the cliff right off the bat, and things are looking a bit grim. Yuna subs in and decides to summon Ifrit. Considering this thing is weak to fire, sounds like a reasonable choice. A couple fires is enough to push the chocobo eater on his back, but not enough to advance away from the edge of the cliff. As a Hail Mary, Ifrit uses Hellfire, hoping to do enough damage to mean something, but because Aeon Overdrives cost so much speed, it just leads to Ifrit eating a punch and going down. And that was the end. Immediately after the team returns, they are pushed off the edge. Now, I know this fight isn't imperative to win, and just like Belgamine, you can just ignore a loss and move on. But I wasn't having it. This one felt a bit more personal. So, I reloaded my save and tried it again. I adjust my starting lineup to be Auron, Lulu, and Kimahri this time. This is because the Chocobo Eater is both armored, so only Auron and Kimahri do full damage, but also weak to fire. So that team of 3 would be able to output the most damage at the start and try and take the initiative. At first, it goes pretty similarly with the team being pushed to the edge of the cliff, but this time there's enough damage output to push him back shortly after. I also discover in this fight that Lulu's Overdrive kinda sucks. The damage penalty on each spell cast makes it absolutely not worth it over just casting the spell. Anyway, once the boss is getting lower on HP and the team is not pushed against the cliff, I figure it's time to get the XP credit for everybody else and bring in the benchers. Yuna once again summons, and this time uses Valefor for its high evasion. The boss basically can't hit this thing, especially with blindness from Wakka. I even get the overkill using Valefor's Overdrive since missed attacks generate a ton of overdrive on Aeons. Overall, a much better performance, but I missed the key spheres gotten from knocking it off the ledge. Oh well. The crew decide to journey the rest of the high road on Chocobo back and take the travel agency up on their offer for a free rental. Collecting a little loot on the way, they thoroughly explore all the side roads before ending up at the end. At this point, it seems the road is blocked thanks to the impending Crusader operation against Sin in the next area. It seems hopeless at first, but then Seymour shows up out of nowhere and throws his political weight around to try and show off in front of Yuna, letting the party through. RNGesus really isn't having it.
Who does he think he is?
He's a maester. Better get used to it, yeah?
When they show up on the Mushroom Rock Road, Waka has a crisis of faith when he tries to talk to Seymour about the operation details and their use of forbidden machina. Seymour just does not care whatsoever, and RNG agrees with the ideas, if not the man speaking them. After a few battles on the Mushroom Rock Road, I go back to blitzing a little bit. This time, a tournament has popped up with a pretty substantial reward, Waka's next overdrive. While making my way through Mushroom Rock Road, I get quite a bit of XP, so I get some more sphere levels. Waka keeps going through Auron's grid. Auron ends up moving back down towards Kimahri's grid, which seems like a bad omen for Auron in the future. RNG proceeds through Lulu's grid, picking up a little magic stat. Lulu rolls the dice, and ultimately rolls high, getting her raw spells. Kimahri finally picks up haste, giving him a solid party roll. Then he rolls the dice, aiming down towards Waka and Auron's grid. Yuna continues making her way through her own grid. RNG is really looking like a weak link right now, so he even goes down a couple times to enemies, requiring Yuna to utilize that life spell she picked up. Picking up even more levels, the only notable changes are that Lulu now has her whole kit of raw spells, everybody else just moving along the track. When we finally get near the end, we encounter Gata and Luzu. Gata is mad that he is being stationed at base instead of battling Sin on the front lines, and Luzu is more composed, and seems to recognize that this might be the end of his story. Waka gives him a punch in the face after he admits that it's his fault that Waka's brother joined the Crusaders and ultimately died in battle. Then we all bid some sad farewells. If this isn't the tragic last scene of a character, I don't know what is. Waka breaks his toe kicking a rusty old cannon like a real genius. I see another save point right before the command center entrance and can't help myself but get a couple more blitz games in, thinking the league ends after 5 rounds, but I was sure wrong. All in all, throughout my time running through Mihen High Road and Mushroom Rock Road, I completed 8 Blitzball matches, 5 in the league and 1 full tournament, which rewarded Waka's Overdrive attack reels. The basic takeaways I have are that Jet Shot kind of trivializes the game at this point, and that as long as you get a somewhat competent goalie, you'll never let a goal in. Jumal is pretty decent at this point in the game. He is definitely keeping the balls out of the net. It doesn't take much research to see that Nimruk is the best goalie in the game, and that is apparent even from playing against him. The Albed Sykes are by far the hardest team to play against, and it is completely because of him. Even Jet Shot has a chance to fail. Anyway, I was hoping to clear a league during this time, but I underestimated how many matches that would be, so I gave up after 5, which is enough to play against every opposing team once. I plan to play more during the next act in the story, especially when a tournament or something has an overdrive or a sigil for Waka. Gata is acting pissy at the door to the command center. Little does he know that is absolutely the best place for him to be. Auron meets an old quote-unquote friend at the command center. Maester Keenock acts all friendly, but Auron clearly doesn't like this guy one bit. We also get some military industrialist vibes from him, as he shows just how little he cares for the lives of these people. As the operation begins, immediately one of the Sin spawn they brought here to lure Sin breaks loose and attacks the camp. I start by using newly learned Focus with RNG to buff Lulu, but he immediately gets taken out by the boss. Lulu does her thing and nukes the boss with her raw spells, going for the head first. Auron subs out for Yuna to revive Dummy, only for her to take a punch and go down right after. At one point, I try to use Waka's new overdrive, but it doesn't go particularly well. Basically a total waste of time. I finally use Lulu to get Yuna back up, then haste Lulu with Kimahri. Lulu goes ham with the magic, totally carrying the fight. Then I use Grand Summon on Ifrit to see how much damage I can do with Hellfire. It turns out, a pretty good amount. The head and both arms are overkilled, with the body taking substantial damage. Ifrit also dodges once, which allows him to stock Overdrive again before his turn comes up. Might as well go for round 2 of Hellfire. The boss isn't dead yet though, and Ifrit gets beaten down before he can act again. Lulu jumps back into the fray and takes stock of the situation. She goes off on the arms with magic to take them down quickly. Kimahri uses haste on Yuna so she can heal everybody more effectively. This party setup is working out reasonably well. I summon Valefor next to give it a go at taking down what remains of the boss, but it just manages to beat the arms and then gets taken down. Now we have an open target to deal as much damage as possible before it can recover. I sub in Auron to power break and reduce melee damage. Yuna is just using Prey every turn to restore as much HP as possible without using any resources. But my damage isn't quite enough to beat the boss before it regenerates its arms. It is also getting close to going down, so I bring in Kimahri and Auron to deal melee damage, with Lulu continuing to spam magic. I also stack up some cheers to maximize defense against his hard-hitting punches. Auron manages to one-shot an arm for overkill, then Kimahri takes 2 attacks to beat the other. The boss is looking bad now, and Lulu manages to finish the job with 1 more cast. At this point, Big Daddy starts showing himself out in the ocean. It would be hard to call this anything less than a massacre. Sin just completely wipes the floor with all the Machina and Knights attacking him, disintegrating most of the opposing force with a single energy blast. The boss comes back for round 2 and attacks Yuna, but Seymour comes out to show off how powerful he is. This is the only battle in the game where you control Seymour. He has reasonably more magic stat than Lulu, so he comes off as kind of strong for this point in the game. But I mean, he's only like as strong as Macalani or maybe even earlier. He's hyped up for really nothing. Anyway, with Seymour pelting the boss with strong raw spells, Yuna healing with Prey, and Auron being there, the fight goes pretty uneventfully. What I found funny is that Seymour gets XP at the end and sphere levels, and it looks like his levels are way lower than the party. Next, we see Sin destroy the rest of the Machina, ending a pretty one-sided battle. RNG wakes up on the beach and looks around for survivors, finding Gata trembling and cursing his fate. RNG is furious that his father did this, so he chases him out into the ocean, swimming for what looks like miles and miles. He has a few flashbacks of life with his abusive jackass of a father, cementing in his mind that Sin is, in fact, his father. Yuna does the sending, and Auron consoles RNG about what just happened and his role in this story. Auron confronts Keenock about his callous behavior, throwing innocent crusaders in Al Bhed into the fire to cement his position in the church. Then, Seymour tries to improve his relationship with Yuna, but I don't think she's really getting his intentions much.
In dark times, she must be. She must shine bright.
Huh?
At the end, a recap of the sphere grid situation. Lulu is angling for the strongest member of the party right now, mostly because she hasn't broken out of her own grid. Auron is still decent, but his meandering around RNG and Kimahri's grids probably lowered his potential a bit. Kimahri is also meandering a bit, though I'm hoping he heads into Auron's grid to pick up some more power. He has haste, which is a great boon and gives him a solid role in the party. RNG is a weak link, no doubt about it. He is currently near the start of Lulu's grid picking up some magic, but his initial magic stats suck so much he's still terrible. Wakka is picking up some good strength in Auron's grid, meaning he will probably end up a strong physical attacker before long. And finally, Yuna is also sticking to her own grid, making her still the premier healer of the group. I would say the strongest and most important members I have right now are Lulu, Yuna, and Wakka, with Kimahri and Auron still holding on, RNG falling way too far behind. This is still early days for this run, so the shifting around of grids hasn't had too much of an impact on my ability to win battles, but Act 2 will be a different story. There are some serious difficulty spikes coming up, notably Macalania Temple and Bavel.
Picking up where we left off the story, the team are traveling down Jose High Road towards Jose Temple after the complete disaster that was Operation Mihen. There is definitely a thick cloud of despair in the air around the High Road and Temple, as many Crusaders were killed, and the survivors are basically societal pariahs because of their gamble with forbidden Machina. When the team arrive at Jose Temple, there is an impressive display of lightning around the temple, which is an indication some other summoner is communing with the faith. As they go inside, they run into a new character by the name of Isaru, and his 2 brothers who act as his guardians. Why he chose to let his clearly prepubescent brother be a guardian is beyond me, when even middle-aged samurai Auron is struggling to kill these fiends. As they go into the inner chambers to start the trial, Isaru stops RNG and gives him a warning. Some summoners have been going missing nearby. The Jose Cloister involves moving around lots of electrified spheres acting as batteries, but is pretty simple. The reward is, unfortunately, a magic sphere. I'll take this time to note that I do not intend to use any spheres that fill in empty nodes on this run, as it goes against the spirit of the challenge.
So this reward is a big old waste. Even a basic potion would have more value. After reaching the innermost chamber, RNGesus is chastised by all his friends to calm down and sit still. Then, Miss Bad Attitude Summoner rival Donna shows up with her beefcake boyfriend Bartello. At first, he seems to be giving the stink eye to Auron, but it turns out he's a huge fan and just wants to shake his hand. Donna finally got some just desserts for her constant hectoring of our heroine Yuna. Yuna picked up the new Aeon Ixion, who will be seeing a lot of use in the near future. The next day, Yuna overslept after staying up all night sending the souls of the dead, and she gets teased by the team in a small moment of levity during a rough time. The next area is a long stretch of road leading to a massive river called the Moonflow. The enemies in this area are a serious step up in difficulty, especially the Ochus. These guys are basically the Lord Ochu from Kilika, but as regular enemies, and they pose quite a challenge for the underpowered party. Ixion pulls a lot of weight, taking these guys down with minimal resources. During this period, Kimari has been having a particularly tough time on the sphere grid. He is going in actual circles, passing a lot of empty nodes. Basically, most of his sphere levels have gone to complete waste, making his growth stunted. But one positive thing is that RNGesus got the very handy overdrive mode Warrior, which is vastly superior to the default mode Stoic. Now, he can much more reliably use his overdrives in combat, and that will lead to him learning his more powerful overdrives sooner. As the team reach the Moonflow, RNGesus is quite impressed with the view, especially when he sees the star attraction, Zishupaf. As Auron explains, even Jecht was blown away at the sight of this massive thing and tried to take it down like a fiend, the evidence of which is still visible through the terrible scaly texture on his 3D model, if you look close enough. Everybody gets aboard Zishupaf, but during the crossing of the river, Yuna is kidnapped by some Albed assailants and taken underwater. Guess we found out who is responsible for the missing summoners. Wakka and RNGesus are forced to confront the kidnappers and rescue Yuna, as they are the only two who can breathe and fight underwater, I guess. Now, at first I was really dreading this battle because I knew it was a two-man party and one of the members would be my weakest link, RNGesus. However, as it turns out, this fight went extremely well, and in fact, the stars kind of aligned for making it extra easy. Let me explain. First, Wakka had picked up a very handy little trick from Auron's sphere grid, Magic Break. This reduces magic damage dealt by an enemy by half. Next, RNGesus was deep into Lulu's sphere grid and had gotten a hold of her buffing ability Focus. This typically just increases magic damage dealt and is a good way to improve Lulu's damage output, but it has another effect. It increases magic defense as well, further reducing the damage of magic attacks coming from the enemy. Finally, the Extractor basically just uses one move the entire fight, Aqua Shooter. This is a magic damage attack, presumably water elemental, but that isn't particularly relevant here. Since it deals magic damage, with Magic Break and several stacks of focus, the damage was reduced to negligible levels and the team basically had no need to worry about heals. The Extractor does try to launch some depth charges now and then, but a few hits from Wakka always stopped that before it happened. All in all, RNGesus was on buffing duty and Wakka on offense, and it went down surprisingly easily. After winning the battle, Wakka went on a racist tirade against Albed. RNGesus has a surprisingly observant moment where he notices Yuna is uncomfortable and diverts the conversation to just focusing on their jobs protecting Yuna. And so, the team arrived on the other side of the Moonflow, ready to proceed with their journey. Yuna is surrounded by people again on the shore of the Moonflow, so RNGesus, jealous of her popularity, shimmies off to the next area alone. There, he encounters a strangely familiar young girl in a wetsuit. It turns out to be Riku, who RNGesus is more than happy to see again. When he almost reveals her as an Albed in front of Albed racist Wakka, Yuna and Lulu pick up on it and decide to hold a girls-only huddle nearby. Not sure what they talked about, but somehow they decided that Riku being Yuna's guardian is the best solution. Nobody has any reason to object, and so our party grows to 7, and the final member is available at last. While exploring the forest in the next zone, the tutorial for Riku's mechanics happens, explaining her ability to open chests and her overdrive, Mix. I have a feeling Mix might be a very clutch thing to have at some point in the future. I spent a short while grinding XP outside the gates of Guadosalam, since the enemies here are pretty weak, and Riku is seriously weak when she first joins. During this grind, Auron picked up the overdrive mode Warrior as well. Now, once Wakka gets it, things will be looking up quite a bit. Once I get enough levels to spend, I went back to the sphere grid. Most notably, Yuna learned her next tier of healing spell, Cura, and Riku made her first move, but it was a bad one. She jumped straight into Kimari's grid through a level 1 lock. This could be a really bad sign, considering Kimari's grid leads to literally everybody else's, so she could end up anywhere now.
When the team enter Guadosalam, the city of the Guado, they are greeted by a polite butler type named Trommel. He instructs Yuna and co to visit Seymour's manor and speak with him, so the next destination is set. Before going there though, Riku takes a second to teach RNGesus about customizing weapons and armor with new abilities. For the moment, I don't intend to use this function. However, if things get too rough in the future, it could be a way to balance the difficulty a bit. As of now, Customize feels against the spirit of the challenge, so I will be banning it. The team journey to Seymour's house, and there everybody is immediately on high alert and suspicious of what is about to happen. Even Kimari speaks up his feelings on the matter.
Kimari not like Mr. Seymour.
When Seymour invites the team to his chambers, he shows them images of the past. RNGesus, of course, recognizes his home city, Zanarkand, but the ulterior motive here is that Seymour is trying to impart upon Yuna the link between her and her distant ancestor in the summoner arts, Unluckiest. Unluckiest is well known for having a deep romance with her guardian, Zeon, and Seymour is relying on this to pressure Yuna into doing something. That something is marrying him. For what reason, we don't know yet, but Yuna is clearly shaken by this sudden bold request. As the team leaves to think over the situation, Seymour makes a curious observation. Auron smells of the far plane. Yuna decides she needs to visit her deceased parents in the far plane to think over her next steps vis-a-vis marrying Seymour. So the team head over to a giant portal leading to what is presumably the afterlife. Everybody is set to go inside, except for two, Auron and Riku. Given the recent comments from Seymour and his strong reluctance to enter the far plane, Auron is getting more and more suspicious about his aliveness. Riku, on the other hand, just seems to be a scaredy cat. More on that later. In the far plane, everybody is visiting some person from their past. First, Wakka, who is speaking to his dead brother Chapu, the one who is said to physically resemble RNGesus. Personally, I don't see it. Notably, after this cutscene, the sword Brotherhood that RNGesus is carrying gets a serious buff. Doesn't save his bad stats though. Next, Lulu is also reminiscing about Chapu, and takes this time to impart some romantic wisdom upon RNGesus. Finally, Yuna is visiting her parents. RNGesus sees this and tries to find out how she feels about Seymour, and Yuna confesses she plans to refuse his proposal. Then, Yuna encourages RNGesus to summon the spirit of his father Jecht, saying that he won't show up because only the dead appear on the far plane. She wasn't wrong, Jecht didn't come, but RNGesus' mother did. It was then that he realized the reason he hates his father was jealousy of the love his mother had for him. After everybody finishes getting closure or learning life lessons or whatever, they leave the far plane and start heading back to inform Seymour of Yuna's reply. At that moment, an unwanted visitor tries to escape from the confines of the far plane, Seymour's father, Jiskel, who is recently deceased. Yuna sends him, and while doing so, Auron seems to be greatly affected by the sending ceremony. Suspicious. Jiskel leaves behind a sphere, which Yuna pockets before she leaves. When Yuna goes to inform Seymour of her answer, RNGesus discovers that Seymour has already departed the city for the next temple in Macalania. Insert the most dated 90s joke ever.
They say Seymour went to Macarena Temple.
Macalania Temple.
Alright?
The team decide to move on to the next area, the Thunder Plains. When arriving in the Thunder Plains, RNGesus rightly questions how anybody in their right mind would choose to pass through this zone. Riku also has the right idea, clearly fearing for her life at the thought of all the lightning coming down. However, Lulu explains the purpose of the lightning rod towers, and everybody sets out. After a short tutorial about how to dodge lightning, RNGesus proceeds to get struck by lightning several times. The enemies here give a lot more XP than the area before Guadosalam. I got quite a few levels to spend. During combat, Wakka also picked up the Overdrive Mode Warrior, which means everybody who frequently attacks enemies to defeat them has it. While exploring, RNGesus found a strange stone in the shape of a funny-looking green man. When praying at this stone, it had some weird magical effect. Guess we will have to see what that means later. Sphere grid time, and this one was a doozy. RNGesus hits a dead end, and as he doubles back, he ends up going completely the wrong way down Lulu's grid, all the way back to Kimari's eventually. Ouch. Waka is making decent progress and picks up slow. At least he is still getting somewhere. Riku and Auron both start heading down the same path, right towards a Lulu's grid. Is the whole team going to be black mages or something? Finally, the worst news yet. Kimari, the poor soul, has completed his circuit around and started going back for another lap. So many wasted sphere levels. Partway through the area, Riku has a complete mental breakdown and reverts to her animal brain for a minute. She begs and pleads to take a break at the nearby Rin travel agency. At first, the team are not having it, and they coldly keep walking as she cries about her fear of lightning. But finally, Auron comes around, and they decide to take a short break. Though, strangely, Yuna claims to be tired and rents a room by herself. Unlike her, a little bit more sphere gridding, Auron picks up Blizzard and Riku Fire. Then Yuna gets an actually useful spell in the form of Shell. Riku takes a second to explain to RNG why she is so afraid of lightning. She explains that her brother, named Brother, once cast a lightning spell at a water fiend, but hit her instead. That's when Lulu suggested Riku learn a little bit about magic herself. Oh, if only you knew, Lulu. When the proprietor of the establishment, Rin, comes out, he notices Auron nearby. It seems Rin once took care of a gravely injured Auron and nursed him a little bit, but strangely found Auron had gone missing despite his injuries. Once again, Auron seems ready to move on from this topic as fast as possible. The evidence is mounting. RNG goes snooping around Yuna's room and manages to cartoonishly fall into the room like a true dingus. Even during the preceding conversation where she actually is surprisingly forthcoming, he makes a big faux pas regarding Seymour.
Well, I know one way to take care of him.
I'm sorry.
Huh?
I actually took a small Blitzball break here. Truth is, I was playing Blitzball basically every save point I got to. This was a notable game because it ended the first league, and a bit of a nail-biter actually, as it was against the best team in the league, the Albed Sykes, and I only managed to score one time because of how OP Nimruk is. But I did come out on top and ended up sweeping the league with 10 wins and 0 losses or draws. The reward was only a sorta useless teleport sphere, and next league only has dark matter. Guess I will be waiting for a bit to blitz again. The end goal is, of course, getting all the things for Waka, with the Jupiter Sigil being the final prize. After blitzing, the crew convinces Riku to finally leave the travel agency and get moving. Weirdly, as soon as everybody steps outside, some strange man runs by and snaps a candid photo of Yuna before disappearing over the horizon. Nobody says a thing. After some more time spent crossing the Thunder Plains, dodging a few lightning bolts, getting hit by a few more, Yuna decides she has something important to say right now. As it turns out, Yuna has decided to marry Seymour after all. Yay! Auron doesn't object, since she declares she will still go through with the pilgrimage. Only RNG is strongly opposed. Before exiting the area, another set of level ups. Kimari successfully broke out of the loop, going north into RNG's grid. Auron skipped getting the rest of the first tier black magic spells, and went straight into Lulu's grid proper. Lulu apparently found her way onto Waka's grid as she picked up Silence Buster. This expert grid is a bit confusing to follow. Riku got the rest of the first tier black magic spells, then, instead of going for Lulu's grid, doubles back and goes onto Yuna's instead. Waka picked up the first luck upgrade using the only fortune sphere I had, so for the time being, I'm treating luck spheres as dead ends, same as locks. Yuna made a detour out of her grid onto Lulu's, but that isn't such a bad thing since they both have similar stat boosts and Yuna already has high magic stat. Finally, RNG pulled a Kimari and went in a circle for no value. One final note about the Thunder Plains, there was a particularly nasty random encounter right near the end where we were ambushed by an iron giant and 2 floating eyes. Shortly after starting, Kimari goes down, followed by Lulu getting confused and Auron going down, so I was left with 1 confused, near-dead Lulu and 2 dead boys. I managed to recover with a Mega Phoenix and pulled out a win with Kimari's Stone Breath. RNG talks with Auron about Yuna's intentions. He's left feeling a little better after hearing Yuna has a plan and isn't just getting manipulated. While crossing the woods, one of my personal favorite areas in the game by the way, they've run into Big Bartello running around in a panic. It seems Donna has disappeared. Riku seems to know more about this than she's letting on. Considering she flat out admitted to being in the Machina that kidnapped Yuna, I think it's a reasonable assumption she knows exactly where Donna went. Moving along, RNG caught some butterflies, but only got an MP sphere. The woods were great XP, so everybody got a few more sphere levels. Yuna got Reflex from Lulu's grid and continues along that way. Kimari opened up a level 1 lock only to enter what looks to be a dead end, though there is a level 2 lock in there. Maybe he will get one soon? During some more battles, RNG finally got a hold of his second overdrive, Slice and Dice. This one is significantly stronger, especially in boss battles.
Another butterfly catching game, this time an even worse reward in the form of an ether. Near the end of the woods, they find an area that Auron seems very interested in, and he cuts a path through the trees to a clearing. In the clearing, a fiend came out of the water to ambush them. It was the Spheromorph, a morphtastic, blobby monster that loves to change elemental weaknesses. Now, little does this thing know, my whole team is underpowered except for Big Mage Boss Lulu, so this thing really didn't know what hit it. Kimahri put on a little haste, Lulu capped out on focus during off turns, and melee such as Auron or Waka prodded for elemental weaknesses by smacking the thing. It did very little damage to the party since it had power break, and Lulu eventually was hitting for upwards of 2000 damage per spell. Extremely easy win this time. The reward for winning was a sphere left behind by Jecht full of charming memories of their bro trip 10 years past. Also, Auron picked up his next overdrive, and the Jecht Sphere collectible was unlocked throughout the world, with more of his overdrives being available for finding them all. Auron tries to express how Jecht really felt about RNGesus, and it seems his daddy issues are getting a little less severe these days. The team make it to the next area, a cold region called Lake Macalania. First, some more level ups. Waka is just moving right along on his path. RNGesus picks up Riku's ability, Steel. Kimahri did indeed get the opportunity to open up that level 2 lock, but fate decided against it and he went back the way he came. Riku picked up Lancet, which I think makes her the 4th person to get it. Lulu is also just moving right along. Auron, however, made a big move by breaking through a sphere lock out of Lulu's grid and into Waka's. Might be some hope yet. Finally, Yuna also has nothing notable to report. As the team go towards the temple in Lake Macalania, they are greeted by Trommel, who comes to receive Yuna. During this brief period, Yuna is actually out of the party. I know because I ran back to save and got into a battle, with Yuna not being available. I made a backup save at this location, because I know some really serious boss battles are coming up, and that grinding will be more difficult, especially for Yuna. So, just in case something proves to be too difficult, I knew I might have to come back here to get stronger before trying again. After making my backup save, I continued on to the boss fight below. The battle is against a hulking machina called the Crawler, and for this fight, Yuna is actually back in the party. The Crawler comes equipped with a little buddy named the Negator, which is a real pest. It stops all magic and even summons, and it is also a flying monster, which makes it out of reach for melee attacks. So basically, Waka or bust here. After defeating the Negator with Waka, the team went to work pummeling the Crawler, using mostly lightning magic from Lulu for damage. The Crawler is constantly charging up a dangerous super attack called the Mana Beam, so before it could use that, Yuna used Grand Summon and pulled out Ixion. Thor's hammer did max damage for this point in the game, which was a significant chunk of its remaining HP. Then, Ixion ate the Mana Beam and was killed immediately. At least he did some good damage. After Ixion's big hit, the boss didn't require much more work, though it did summon its little buddy again before the end. Some Waka and Lulu teamwork got the job done. After the Crawler exploded, Riku lets the cat out of the bag when she replies to brother in the Albed language. Now Waka is suddenly in full-on racist mode and in a perpetual sour mood for a long time after. Riku and Waka have some philosophical debate about the merits of following dogma versus using critical thinking. It's all well and good, except they kind of have bigger fish to fry since Yuna is going off to marry a psychopath at this very moment. The rest of the team are way more accepting than Waka and quickly go to work fixing some Albed snowmobiles, which they use to ride off and save Yuna. Lulu rides on the back with RNGesus, which gives them some one-on-one time. She is turning into a real big sister type to him, and not in a weird dating sim way. This temple looks pretty precarious. It's in a gargantuan frozen cavern protruding from the ceiling, aiming down at the frozen lake below. After walking across a narrow bridge made entirely of ice and somehow not slipping off and dying, the team reached the temple doors, at which point, somehow this guy realizes Riku is an Albed on sight, though Waka couldn't this whole time. Is it obvious or isn't it? Some quick level ups. Waka uses a level 1 sphere to get to a path to a different area. Lulu also opens up a lock, though hers leads to a dead end with only some HP inside, so back to the fork for her. RNGesus confirms his route down into Yuna's zone, though misses Kira and Asuna sadly. Kimahri picked up the useful delay attack, that should come in handy later. Soon after reaching the temple, there is a ruckus when one of the temple ladies finds a sphere of Jiskel in Yuna's stuff that they were clearly snooping around in. This is when the rest of the team finally see what Jiskel was trying to tell them and what Yuna has been hiding. Jiskel realized Seymour was twisted and had dark intentions before he died, and even correctly predicted Seymour would kill him to make a grab at power. Now understanding the threat that Seymour poses, the team immediately go to Yuna's aid, with Kimahri leading the charge past the guards. When they get to where Seymour is waiting, Yuna comes out of the room with a faith. Apparently, she already got the new Aeon. Everybody confronts Seymour about what Jiskel said, and even Yuna decides to stop skirting the issue and get an answer out of him directly. Seymour isn't even trying to hide his evil anymore though, and straight up decides to murder the lot of them. With no choice but to defend themselves and Yuna, a battle begins. Now, I had no idea what to do about these Guado guards here. I later looked up the actual solution, but for now I was just banging my head against a wall with their auto potions. After a little while, Yuna decides to summon her newest Aeon to try and take these guys out. She has an easy time one-shotting the Guado guards, but for some reason Seymour really goes into turbo mode when an Aeon is out and spams tier 3 magic instead of tier 2. So the summon doesn't last long. When it is just Seymour left, the team take a slow and steady approach, getting some buffs and keeping themselves healed while doing small bits of damage with Waka. That's when Seymour pulls out the big guns, Anima. Now Anima is kinda crazy for this point in the game. She alternates between using Boost to charge her overdrive meter, and Pain, which is instant death to one character. There's no way to protect against it at this level, not even sure if it can miss, so basically just have to keep in mind every other turn someone is going to die. Sticking with the buff plan, Waka gets pretty beefy and becomes the primary damage source for this section. His overdrive did a particularly high amount of damage. With a haste from Kimahri and some luck that Pain never targeted him, Waka really carried this fight. In the end, Waka managed to defeat Anima before its overdrive was full, which would have probably been game over. Then, immediately after starting the next leg of the fight against Seymour, Waka used his overdrive again and just ended it immediately, completely crushed. Seymour was defeated. Presumably, he would have died from his injuries. Getting hit with a Blitzball that many times will do that. Auron was shouting at Yuna to send him, but before she could get it done, Trommel and his goons carried Seymour's body away. Looks like this isn't over just yet. The team are pretty gloomy over just declaring themselves traitors to Yevon by attacking a Maester, but no time to sulk about it now. After the battle, we get to name the new Aeon as Shiva, then get some more levels. During this level up segment, the biggest news is that Auron got access to Sleep Attack and Yuna got access to Bio. Though Yuna will be missing from the party for a quite long time soon after this, so not many opportunities to use it. On the way out the door, the Cloister of Trials decides to activate, trapping the team inside until they can solve it. This one is pretty tedious, and I even had to do it twice because I left to save, not realizing it would completely reset the puzzle. When they reach the outside, Trommel is waiting. He sicks all his Guado companions on the party to attack them for what they've done. That's when it turns into a chase across the long ice bridge out of the area. Some of them catch up, and it turns into a battle. After seemingly getting away, they are ambushed by one last group of Guado who are supporting a hulking fiend called a Wendigo. This thing is a beast. The Guado beef it up with Berserk, and they even heal it with eye drops if it gets blinded. When it lands a punch, it might as well one-shot, even without Berserk. Waka barely survived a punch from full health. Yuna summons once, and Valefor actually did some pretty good work here. Valefor has high evasion, and evading attacks gives a ton of overdrive, so just avoiding the one punch allowed Valefor to use Energy Blast. It did max damage to all targets, finally finishing off the two Guado, though Valefor couldn't dodge everything, and finally got taken out by a nasty punch. Now it's just the Wendigo, buffed by Protect and Shell thanks to the Guado goons, so the team worked on a slow and steady approach again. Isuna to get rid of Berserk, Power Break to lower physical damage, Blind to keep its accuracy low, lots of stacks of Cheer to raise physical defense. It took a while to beat it down through Protect and avoiding the counter stance it likes to do, but eventually the team took it down. But not before it slammed the ice below them, cracking it and sending the team plummeting into the lake. At the bottom of the lake, the team are somehow all still alive. They discuss what to do next, with Waka still being a negative Nancy, and Auron really committing to finishing Yuna's pilgrimage, even if it means defying Yevon. At some point, the area starts shaking and they realize Sin is nearby. While affected by the toxin, RNG comes to terms with his feelings about his father. And then, he wakes up in some strange place, face down in a pool of water. This feels familiar. This time, he is in the middle of a desert and all alone. While moving through the desert, he gets into a battle with a big birdie. This one was pretty scary with only one character, but shortly after the fight began, Auron showed up, and not long after that, Lulu joined in as well. Now with a full party, they took down Big Bird and moved on. Waka was found nearby, waiting under some ruins alone. The next area had Kimahri in a dead end by himself, and finally, Riku was waiting to greet everybody at the end of the area. Once again, Riku and Waka bicker for a while about their respective positions. This time, Riku is willing to share the location of the secret Albed home, but only under the condition of absolute secrecy, as she doesn't trust Yevon. Waka takes offense to the accusation, despite every word coming out of his mouth dripping with malice for the Al Bhed, all because of a lifetime of indoctrination from Yevon. Eventually, Waka relents and says he will keep the secret, and they move on to the next area. There was one random encounter with a sandworm, and this one was pretty rough. Though, after a while, they got into a groove and once again relied on Lulu and Waka to take it down. These two are the clear frontrunners for damage in the party. During some level ups, the most notable thing that happened was Riku just going in circles, so she wasted several levels now. But, some good news, Waka picked up haste, which means Kimahri isn't the only one who can use it anymore. Very nice. At first, I was trying to explore this area thoroughly and find all the loot, but I quickly got tired of the extremely lengthy battles, especially zoos and sandworms. And without Yuna, healing and especially raising is a concern. So I decided to just sprint for home, making sure to pick up all the Al Bhed primers on the way. Barring the way to home was a battle against a Sandragora. This was a little bit of a problem, because it kept giving confuse to the team, in particular Waka. It mostly just made it take a really long time to win. Lulu helped a lot though, as usual. Upon cresting the hill and seeing Home, Riku is justifiably freaked out. Home is under attack by someone, with lots of fiends flying about. She learns from a dying compatriot that the culprits are the Guado. Then, Riku's father shows up, Sid. He invites the party to go to battle in Home against the Guado. Home is the one location in the game that you can never return to after leaving it, so this is a very particularly sensitive area for missables. Most famously, there are 3 Al Bhed primers in the area that if you don't find, you never get another chance. But, with the party at the level they are, the random encounters are especially brutal. Lots of battles went super south immediately, ending up in a game over. Mostly, the Guado magic hits very hard for a lot of members, and characters like Riku just get one shot. It was a lot, but after a lot of resets and close calls, I managed to gather up all the primers and get out of there alive. Riku is down in the dumps, as I imagine most would be when they see their people being slaughtered. And finally, after everything, Waka shows some empathy. Riku explains Yuna is likely in a place called the Summoner's Sanctum. The Al Bhed had been collecting summoners on their pilgrimage after all. While Riku tries to explain their intentions, Waka surprisingly gets it, but RNGesus doesn't. So things get a little bit awkward for a minute.
It's quiet. Kimahri goes now.
In the Sanctum, Riku finally comes clean about why they're so determined to stop summoners. When a summoner defeats Sin, that summoner dies in the process. RNGesus can't handle this sudden information and freaks out. He even assaults an innocent bird monster. The Al Bhed reveal their escape plan, a strange machina in an underground hangar. When everybody boards it to evacuate, it is revealed what the machina is, an airship. They open up the hangar and fly out. Once they reach a safe distance, they unleash the salvo. Using missiles, they destroy Home from afar. Riku is at a low point. Waka tries to console her and fails utterly.
Boom! Like happy festival fireworks, yeah?
You can cram your happy festival, you big meanie!
Now that the team is riding the airship, they hash out their feelings about Yuna. RNGesus wants to save Yuna and not let her sacrifice herself. Sid agrees. Auron argues it is her duty to finish the pilgrimage and has a tiff with Sid about it. When they finally locate where Yuna is, she appears on a view screen, in a wedding dress, standing next to a very much not dead Seymour. Riku is understandably confused. That is when Auron explains how someone becomes an unsent. Wonder why he knows so much about that. Around this time, Rin shows up and tells them that the Guado have infiltrated the ship. The team run upstairs to deal with them, and along the way, RNGesus picks up a pretty good ability, Life. Very handy. When they reach the highest level of the airship, they notice something unusual outside. A giant dragon flying nearby. Lulu tells them what this is, the guardian worm of Bevel, Evray. Sid is very determined to fight. Guess it's boss battle time. This is the fight I was most scared of in Act 2. Evray is quite the challenging boss, and being so underpowered really made it a spooky scenario. Starting out, it was going okay until the first attempted use of Poison Breath. There was not any chance for Sid to move the airship in time before it hit, and it hit the party pretty hard. After recovering, the team went into defense mode, full hastes, slow on Evray, and lots of stacks of cheer. And Waka was in charge of damage. This strategy was working pretty well for a while. Then there was the turn. Late in the fight, Evray starts hasting itself. Every single time it loses haste, it gains it again. Slow doesn't work either. It breaks action economy to do that. So, ignoring that since there is nothing that can be done, the only solution is to just attack. Riku was responsible for heals and buffs, and Wakka and Kimahri for damage. It took a long time and a lot of work, but they managed to get it done. This is really the first time Riku was especially useful in combat, but it won't be the last. After defeating Evrae, the most epic scene in the game plays as the team ride down on wires to crash Yuna's wedding. During the battles against all the soldiers and the wedding ceremony, I noticed something unusual. Lulu is really strong. Like, her strength is only 1 below Wakka's and higher than everybody else. When I attempted to use a melee attack with her, it did more damage than Auron or RNG's. Not sure when this happened, but apparently Lulu is the strongest member of the party in basically all metrics, only really accuracy is comparatively low. Once all the guards are cleared out, the party reaches Seymour and Yuna tries to send him. The Maesters threaten to kill the rest of the party if she goes through with it. When she gives up and Seymour steals a kiss to seal their matrimony, he then orders his goons to kill the party anyway. At this point, Yuna has had enough, and uses the threat of her death to end this confrontation. She leaps off the edge of the building, and summons Valefor to save her from falling. Then, Riku throws a flashbang and uses the opportunity to get everybody out of there. As the party retreat into the temple, they know to look for Yuna where the faith is. Along the way, they use a bunch of machina to get around, and Wakka questions this. Maybe he's finally seeing the true colors of the church? The team enter the next Cloister of Trials, and this one is a futuristic moving walkway? Hard to decide if this one or Macalania is more annoying. This one sure takes longer. The moving walkways are just so slow, and I accidentally missed my goal several times from the janky mechanics. Fortunately, you can't miss the destruction sphere here. I did get the optional chest though. It had a weapon for Kimahri inside, a unique one that doesn't have the piercing effect. After the Cloister of Trials, the team arrived in the Chamber of the Faith, and without waiting, RNGesus immediately breaks all rules and busts his way inside. Kimahri even gives him a hand. Inside, RNGesus sees what the faith really is, a long-dead soul trapped in stone. Upon leaving the chamber with Yuna, the team are arrested by Keenock and sent to prison. Yuna is put on trial by the Council of Maesters. Yuna doesn't hesitate to reveal what she knows, that Seymour murdered his father. Shocking revelation, I know, except nobody on the council seems to care. It turns out Maesters Micah and Keenock both knew and condoned Seymour's actions. So when Yuna revealed the other big news, that Seymour is dead but unsent, well, turns out Maester Micah is unsent too. Wonder if anybody else around here is. This council really is corrupt, huh? Wakka starting to finally see what's going on? In the prison below, RNGesus is stuck in a cell with Auron, and he just has no chill at all. It doesn't take long before Keenock shows up and escorts them to their next destination, execution. Except the manner of execution is a little strange. They're tossed into a canal filled with water. Did they forget this is a world where people can breathe and even play sports underwater? Suddenly, we change to Yuna's perspective, and she is alone in a dark dungeon. This is the Via Purifico, and apparently nobody ever gets out of here alive. Since Yuna is all alone, any battles for a while are basically mandatory summon battles. I have a feeling it will be a good idea to grind up their overdrives while I'm at it. Just a hunch. Yuna runs into Auron first, in an area that looks like it might be the end of the road. Kimahri was found shortly after, and finally Lulu in a dead end. After thoroughly exploring the place, the party of 4 walk down the red hallway from before, and they find someone waiting for them, Isaru, the summoner. It turns out Maester Keenock gave him the order to make sure Yuna doesn't get out of here alive. So this is a summoner versus summoner battle. First, Isaru calls out his Ifrit, so Yuna decides it would be a good idea to use Shiva. She does some great damage with Blazara, but I totally missed that Ifrit starts with a full overdrive, so as soon as Ifrit got a turn, Shiva was done for. One shot by Hellfire. After losing Shiva, Yuna called upon Valefor to handle the remainder of Ifrit's HP. Energy Blast still managed to do full damage. I wonder why everybody thinks Valefor is weak. Isaru must be in the know, because his next summon is Valefor. Yuna responds with Ifrit, a reverse rematch of the last battle. This time, however, Isaru's Valefor does not have overdrive, so Ifrit has time to pummel it first. After a few back and forth swings, when Valefor is about to charge overdrive, Ifrit uses Hellfire. Not quite max damage, but close enough, and enough to beat Valefor. Finally, the last summon is Bahamut. This one is quite intimidating, but Yuna relies on Old Faithful Valefor. This Bahamut is interesting in that it doesn't take any offensive actions at all except Mega Flare, and it takes 5 turns of idling to charge Mega Flare. So during all that time, Valefor is free to smack, and smack he does, many times. But the other thing about Aeon battles is that Aeons have a nifty little move called Shield, and Shield cuts like 90% of taken damage or something. So using Shield on the turn it uses Mega Flare means it barely even scratches Valefor. In the end, Valefor manages to eat 2 Mega Flares and beat Bahamut before he can use it a 3rd time. And with that, Isaru is defeated and Yuna's party can finally escape via Purifico. In a sudden jump cut, we move over to RNG's perspective. He is underwater in a massive canal with the other 2 swimmers in the party, Wakka and Riku. There was exactly 1 random encounter down here against 2 octopi, but why oh why did they make these things armored? There is no way to use a piercing weapon with this particular group. Maybe you can add piercing with customization, but who would know to do that for this one part? Anyway, the fight took a very long time because damage was so low. Fortunately, it was just the one battle before the boss. Evrae Altana is notoriously kind of lame, especially after the epic battle that was Evrae. I'm sure everybody knows the trick by now, but this Evrae is a zombie, so it dies to healing. Specifically, any revive effect, such as the life spell or a phoenix down, does half its max HP. This is not half its current HP, it is half its max, so it dies in 2 of these effects. Unfortunately, the stupid thing got a turn before anybody else and immediately offed Riku, but RNGesus and Wakka got the job done easily. After a short swim through a completely empty canal, RNGesus and crew escape as well, and they run into Yuna's group right outside in an area called Highbridge. But their reunion is short-lived as Seymour immediately shows up to rain on their parade, and he is carrying a lifeless Keenock. Guess nobody is safe from this guy, huh? After revealing that Seymour is a true nihilist, wanting to end all life and spirit to save it from the pain of existence, Kimahri takes a stab at him. Good try, but doesn't quite work. Maybe if we had killed the Night Song first? Seymour transforms into a monstrous form after devouring the energy of his goons. Kimahri takes up a defensive posture and Auron orders everybody to flee. After running a short while, Yuna begs to go back and save Kimahri. RNGesus is down to clown with that idea, so he and Yuna have a cute moment and then run back. Everybody else follows shortly after and then run down the bridge to save Kimahri. This is a tough one that I was woefully unprepared for. My first attempt went absolutely awfully and we were wiped out within a few turns by magic spam. But after knowing his shtick, I went back in with a plan in mind. This time, bringing Riku and Lulu in on the front lines, I set up a magic defense brigade. Or I would have, if it didn't force you to use the set party of Yuna, Kimahri, and RNGesus to start. So, swapping them out for the party I listed before, Riku and Lulu got to work. Riku popped a lunar curtain to give herself shell since her HP is just terrible. Then, Lulu started spamming focus. Her massive HP pool and native magic defense meant she didn't need shell nearly as much as Riku. Some hastes from Kimahri and Wakka also helped quite a bit. Once magic defense was as high as it could go, Riku kept up healing with Albed potions, and Lulu and whoever else was in the group at the time did damage. This worked for a good while, until Seymour changed to his second phase. Now he was spamming Break, which turns a character to stone, and unfortunately the first person he targeted was Riku. Under normal circumstances, an Albed potion would heal stone, but nobody has use except Riku. Once Seymour was spamming Break, a change in strategy was required. Now, max damage was the ticket. So, Yuna came in and showed off all her Aeons. First, Bahamut. Mega Flare did about 6,000 damage to both targets, and that meant an extra bit to Seymour since the Morta body absorbs some of his HP to come back. Seymour will use up his turn one-shot killing any Aeon that is on the field, but this is actually a good thing. That means he isn't using his turn to stone someone or use Flare. So, next up is another Aeon, this time Ixion. Thor's hammer also did great damage, more actually, about 8,000 to both targets. At this point, nobody had a stored up overdrive, so the next Aeon was just a sacrificial lamb. It was Valefor, who came in and did a respectable 1,600 damage smack in the face before it died. Now, Seymour was very weak, so Riku finished him off with a water gem and the fight was won. Well, it was actually the Morta body that finished him off with Morta absorption. Whoops. That was the big climax of this act. Now for a little bit of downtime. The team regroup in Macalania Woods. Yuna is off by herself. RNGesus runs off to find her, and then they spend some quality time together. Yuna is considering quitting her journey at the encouragement of RNGesus, but she knows it is futile and she breaks down. And then there is a scene that I can't show because I would get in trouble, but the music is bopping. In the end, Yuna resolves herself to finish her journey and everybody supports her decision. Now, let's join the group as they recommence their journey and set out into a new location, the Calm Lands. This is where the summoners of old would have their final battle with Sin, as it is a mostly lifeless open grassland. RNGesus redeclares his goal of keeping Yuna alive despite the odds, and they set out. And immediately, the random encounters are punishing as all hell. This was a huge step up from what I've been seeing until now. Many of the monsters in this area can straight up one-hit KO about half my party. Auron, Wakka, and especially Lulu are generally tanky enough to stay standing. Ambushes are exceedingly dangerous. It could end in a team wipe before I even get a turn. To add to that, the XP here is surprisingly not good. It takes several battles to gain a level, and in this run a level generally isn't worth much. At this point though, I'll take what I can get. After some wandering and getting beat up by random battles, the team stumble upon a small shop and an enclosed fence. They take a break here, and while resting, a member of the church approaches. His name is Father Zook, and he lets the team know that Yevon has put out orders to kill Yuna on sight. He himself doesn't show any aggression towards the team and goes on his way. After the conversation, RNGesus speaks with everybody in the area. RNGesus discusses the plan with Riku, but he quickly gets exasperated with her.
I'm tired of talking to you.
Riku is stressed out, trying to think of a solution to keep Yuna alive. Kimari mentions that the upcoming area is the home of his race, the Ronso, but RNGesus makes a bit of a faux pas, assuming they will see his family, to which he says he has none. Lulu reveals that the father from earlier is a former summoner and one that Lulu and Wakka used to be guardians for. He failed in his pilgrimage here in these very calm lands long ago. When the party moves on from the camp, they find Belgemine the summoner in a crater. She challenges Yuna yet again to a summon battle. Belgemine summons Shiva, and Yuna calls upon Bahamut. The opening Mega Flare does a very hefty amount of damage, and after that, it is just a slugfest. It doesn't take long for Bahamut to charge his overdrive again, at which point he once again unleashes Mega Flare. This time, Shiva can't handle it and goes down for the count. Belgemine congratulates Yuna on her growth as a summoner, and invites her to a mysterious place called Remium Temple. Apparently, it is hidden somewhere in the Calmlands. We'll have to pay a visit later. A few notable sphere grid improvements. Yuna gets her first Ga spell in the form of Firaga. Even just one is kinda huge and a game changer. Auron also picks up the full mitt of Ra spells, but that probably won't be particularly relevant going forward. RNGesus wanders the Calmlands and finds a lady mounting a chocobo standing precariously by a cliff. When he speaks to her, she offers to let him use a chocobo, but only if he helps train them. So naturally, he gives it a try. There are 4 total minigames here, and the first 3 are mostly there to help practice the controls and mechanics. They do have their annoyances, however. The last minigame is the real deal though, as this one has a grand prize of the Sun Sigil, which is necessary to max out Kalidbolg, the celestial weapon for RNG here. Now, I hear a lot of people complaining about this minigame, and I think there are some valid points about how random it is and the bad controls. However, I've never really had trouble getting the 0.00 second end time after more than 20 to 30 minutes of trying. In this run, my end result was 15 balloons and 0 birds. Of the 7 celestial weapons, I would probably rank this in the bottom 2 or 3 in terms of difficulty. It just takes a little bit of practice and some luck. After finishing Chocobo training, RNGesus is gifted a Chocobo to ride around the Calmlands, so he takes advantage of that to reach a secret area off the beaten path. This is Remium Temple, the place Belgemine mentioned not long ago. I guess she is hanging around here somewhere. Upon going inside, Yuna speaks to Belgemine again and decides to challenge all her Aeons. Her Veilfor goes down pretty easily to Bahamut. It isn't much of a match. Next up is her Ifrit, and this time Bahamut does some work, but then Ifrit manages to take it down. But thankfully, you can summon more than once this time, so Yuna pulls out Shiva to finish the job and barely manages to get it done. For some reason, I chose this moment to do some leveling. The most important gains here are Haste for Riku, and the next Ga spell for Yuna, Water Ga. Next, I prepared for some more Aeon battles by buffing Bahamut a little bit. I taught him Cura, Focus, and Reflex, which allowed him to be much more defensive. So, Yuna goes back inside to challenge the next Aeon battle, Ixion. Using shiny new tank build Bahamut, Ixion is no threat and he goes down easily. After the battle, Yuna gets some valuable items which can be used to teach Bahamut haste, adding to his versatility even more. Next up is Shiva, and her biggest strength is her evasion. It is surprisingly difficult to hit her, even for strong Bahamut, but since he knows Firaga, it isn't too much trouble to burn her down. Finally, the last Aeon available right now is Bahamut, and you can't summon the same Aeon as she does, so this requires some different strategy. Unlike Isaru, Belgamine's Bahamut actually fights back, so just shielding won't be enough to win here. First up, Yuna summons Shiva and uses Diamond Dust to deal as much damage as possible. It hits hard, but Shiva goes down shortly after. Next up is Ifrit with the same strategy in mind. He uses Hellfire, does a lot of damage, then gets taken out. Finally, next out is Ixion. He doesn't have Overdrive ready, so he has to fight a little bit first, and before he can ready Overdrive, Bahamut goes down and the fight is over. Yuna received an item called the Flower Scepter as a reward for defeating all of Belgamine's currently available Aeons, but she doesn't know what to do with this quite yet, so moving on. Still at Remium Temple, RNG finds a chocobo and learns about a special kind of chocobo race held at this temple. A challenger has to race the champion for chocobo racing glory, but the challenger can only race with a rider, so RNG joins in and attempts to chocobo race. Mostly ignoring the treasure chests, he can come back for those another time, RNG sprints straight to the end and wins handily. The reward is a special item called the Cloudy Mirror. Again, not really sure what to do with this yet, he stows it in his bag along with the other random doodads, and they set out for the next area. Along the way out of the Calmlands, the party finds a little nook on the east side with an old man and a creepy snake monster statue that moves. This is the monster arena, and the old man tasks the party with capturing fiends for him to keep in the arena and battle for entertainment purposes. Apparently, he has literally 0 fiends left, and he needs to replenish his entire supply, and yet he still charges money for the capture weapons required to catch things for him. Anyway, the whole party gets a capture weapon, and they head out to capture a few things near the arena. The hardest battle in the vicinity was a Marlboro, which was pretty harrowing, but somehow I managed to get through it and successfully capture it. But I didn't want to waste a ton of time doing this now, when I could just come back later, so I only captured a few fiends and decided it was enough. Finally, the group managed to reach the edge of the Calmlands and a bridge that leads out towards the next area. But they are stopped by a group of angry Guado seeking revenge for Seymour and to punish the traitors to Yevon. Thus begins the battle against the boss Defender X. This guy is a pugilist golem that can knockout punch like Little Mac from Smash Bros. Nobody in the party natively knows the spell Protect, so physical damage protection is tough to get right now. Basically anybody will get one shot by his punches, especially Haymaker. For this fight, Yuna pulls out recently buffed Bahamut, and it works quite well for a while. Bahamut uses Haste, Cheer, and Reflex to buff itself up, and Cura to heal through the damage, then fights for quite a long time. Eventually though, he runs out of MP and has to Hail Mary a Mega Flare to get as much damage as possible out before being dropped by a punch. Now, time for Plan B, Lulu. Thanks to Riku's use ability, she is able to get Protect up on herself with a Light Curtain, and keep people healed with Albed potions. Lulu nukes down with magic, and Waka throws his balls doing minimal damage per hit. After a while, the damage is enough and Defender X goes down, clearing the path out of the Calmlands. Lulu warns RNG about a path leading down into the giant canyon in the Calmlands. Upon going down to investigate, they find a weird rusty sword and then see an ominous-looking cave. It turns out this is the Cavern of the Stolen Faith, and Lulu apparently had a summoner she was guarding die here a long time ago. The party go inside and are wiped out by a magic pot. Well, that was fast. Trying again, the party go inside and are wiped out by an ambush by a Machina and some fiends. Did I mention a cavern? I think that was the wrong script. There was no cavern. The team go across the bridge that Defender X was guarding and enter the next area, Mount Gagazet. This is Ronso land, and it takes all of 5 seconds before the team is cornered by a big group of Ronso guarding the entrance. They are led by the elder Ronso Kelk, one of the maesters who put Yuna on trial back in Bevel, except he recently stepped down from his position and returned here. When Yuna proclaims her goal to stop Sin once and for all, and that she will stand her ground and fight anyone who tries to stop her, Kelk accepts her strength of will and lets the team pass. Once the Ronso disperse, RNG stops to talk to Kimari. He makes some prescient comments about a certain upcoming battle. I guess he knows what he's in for. And sure enough, walking up the hill a short distance, Biran and Yenki, the two bigger Ronso who have been bullying Kimari since back in Luca, jump down to stop Kimari. They say Yuna and her guardians are fine, but not Kimari. He has unfinished business. Time for a solo battle. In this battle, Biran and Yenki both have their stats adjusted based on Kimari's, which means that they are both pathetically weak, because Kimari is. They also both have a whole bunch of blue magic that can be stolen from them using Lancet, so Kimari goes to work pilfering their skills. It really is a simple battle, not a whole lot of special strategy here. Kimari knows both Haste and Cheer, which lets him buff up his speed, defense, and attack power, and there is no rule against using potions in this fight, so he guzzles a few high potions to stay healthy. Also, every time he Lancets a new ability, his overdrive meter immediately fills up, so he gets to use several powerful blue magic attacks on his foes. After defeating his bullies, they declare Kimari a true Ronso and a powerful warrior, and all of the Ronso on the mountain sing a song in his name. And that, as they say, is that. And so begins the longest mountain climb ever. Mount Gagazet, much like the Calmlands, is a bit brutal at this level, not because enemies are particularly difficult, because with some patience and defensive play, they aren't that threatening. It is mostly the time investment. They have a lot of HP, and my team have not a lot of offense. Yuna can deal some decent damage with Firaga or Waterga, but it costs so much MP that it isn't a viable long-term strategy, and the distance between save spears is severe. A few tricks that helped in combat. The grenades are a particularly dangerous enemy, however, they have a big weakness: Null Blaze. All their attacks deal fire damage, including their melee hits, and when they are hit 3 times, they counterattack whoever hit them last with self-destruct. So, as long as you plan out who the last person to hit them is, and make sure they have Null Blaze active, the self-destruct deals no damage and the grenade dies harmlessly. Both Yuna and RNGesus have access to the full kit of null spells, so they were particularly handy in this regard. Another trick I made great use of was Lulu's Sleep Buster. Lulu has become a reliable melee combatant, and Sleep Buster is a guaranteed sleep, as long as the enemy is vulnerable to the effect. So, some especially dangerous foes, such as the Nidhogg's and the Bashura, can be successfully controlled with this technique to make them lose a turn. It should also be mentioned that during the climb up the mountain, RNGesus got his hands on the Tier 2 black magic spells. His magic stat is still terrible, so they aren't useful, but at least they are better than the basic spells. Climbing the mountain took a seriously long time. I was recording in increments of 1 hour typically, but I couldn't reach a save point, so my one session on the mountain ended up taking more than double that. I was extremely relieved to finally reach the save point at the top, as my party had basically no MP left, and I was getting to the point where I would have to flee from battles to stay alive. At the top of the mountain, Riku stops RNGesus once more to discuss their plan to save Yuna. But they got nothing. Just as they are about to move on, a familiar face appears. Seymour has somehow caught up with them. Riku runs off to grab the rest of the team while RNGesus stands his ground. Fortunately, it doesn't take long for everybody to show, and Seymour reveals that he slaughtered many Ronso warriors on his way up the mountain. This drives Kimari into a rage, which was the whole point of the gesture, I suppose. He also reveals some telling details about Jecht and his relation to Sin, which RNGesus denies. Time to put this nihilist down before he can hurt anybody else. Now, everybody probably already knows how difficult of a battle this is. It's one of the most notorious fights in the game, alongside the likes of Evray and some others coming up. Well, things did not go well for me the first couple attempts. The thing that got me the most was Cross Cleave, his full party melee strike that does pretty hefty damage. If that by itself didn't wipe me, a follow-up attack would. After trying and failing a couple times, I went in with a foolproof strategy in mind. Here are the details. This guy is vulnerable to poison, and honestly, just that is significant. It provides consistent, reliable damage even in times of recovery. He is also able to be silenced, though it isn't particularly easy to stick. Silence Buster is recommended here, and thankfully my girl Lulu has that ready to roll. Finally, we are going to be relying on Riku a little bit, a lot bit, for this one. Basically every boss from here on is a Riku party. With Mix, it is pretty simple to create the effect Mighty G, which gives the full party Protect, Shell, and Haste. So Riku started the fight with Overdrive ready to go for this reason. and she is also on both healing and damage duty. If someone got hit with zombie, it would typically be Auron who cleansed it with holy water. Then Riku could keep HP topped up with Albed potions, and when she has a free turn, use a fire gem to deal damage. There were a ton of fire gems gathered during the climb by stealing from grenades. This setup worked magnificently. Damage was kept low, and even Total Annihilation, his super dangerous attack, did minimal damage and was easily recovered. When the fight was nearing its end, I swapped in all the other party members to get them credit, then summoned Bahamut and used Mega Flare to finish the job and get overkill. Riku is absolutely MVP here, and to be honest, I think she might be MVP in every boss in Act 3. Riku's overdrive is just that powerful. Once the battle is over, Yuna confronts RNGesus about what she heard. Jecht is Sin, and he reveals that it's true. The party come to terms with this information, though it doesn't shake their resolve at all. RNGesus is as motivated as ever to put his old man down. In the area after the battle with Seymour, the party encounter a strange wall lined with stone bodies. It doesn't take long for Yuna to notice that they are all Faith, and they are summoning something. When RNGesus tries to interact with the wall, he suddenly finds himself in Zanarkand, near his home, and the Faith for Bahamut is there waiting for him. The same Faith that has been talking to him since before this all started. Here, we finally learn the reason why he was seeing this guy before he even came to Spira. Bahamut explains that the Zanarkand that he knows, that he comes from, is actually being summoned by the collective dream of the Faith. The Faith are all summoners from the Zanarkand of old, who were nearly wiped out by a Machina attack from their enemy, Bavel. So, to preserve the memory of their city, they began summoning, and created an image of all the people who lived there, including star player of the Zanarkand Abes, RNGesus. But the bigger point here is that this dream has to come to an end. When Sin is defeated, the dreaming will stop, and when it does, this Zanarkand and everybody from there will vanish. When RNGesus awakens, he chooses not to tell anybody what he learned. Now, the tables are turned. It is RNGesus who is keeping a secret about his fate at the end of this journey. During some cave leveling, Lulu picks up even more strength. Now, she is officially stronger than Wakka at physical attacks. She also picks up one of Wakka's best moves, Triple Foul. But Wakka isn't one to be left behind, and he picks up something useful too. The ability Use from Riku's grid, which is actually insanely useful and gives Wakka some major value to the party. In this cave, there are some long sections filled with water. You know what that means. The party is limited to just Wakka, Riku, and RNGesus. 2 out of 3 of those characters are decent, but RNGesus is serious dead weight, especially since I was a dingus who forgot to change his weapon, which does water elemental damage, so his physical attacks healed all the fish fiends in the water. Anyway, these water sections were a little tedious with no access to powerhouses Yuna and Lulu, but there wasn't all that much danger of death with Riku in the party to heal. I do want to mention one particular random encounter in this cave. It was against a Dark Flan, which has a very high physical and magical defense. Effectively, it was a long slog to defeat this thing. This one battle took over half an hour. I'm on a schedule here, guys. I don't have time for 30-minute battles. At some point during the water sections, I gave up, and I started using Flee. The time taken to win these fights didn't balance out with the low amount of XP gained, so I just wanted to get to the next part of the story. Before the boss of this area, Yuna has an interesting thing happen. She comes to a fork of destiny on the sphere grid, and she goes the absolute right way, into the spiral. The spiral that leads to the most powerful magic in the game. She'll ride the spiral to the end, and may just go where no one's been. The boss at the end of this area is the Sanctuary Keeper, a big dragon. This one also took me out the first time with some very strong area attacks. Well, to be more accurate, the battle was going poorly, so I restarted. But the second time, I utilized a turtle strategy. This guy is also vulnerable to poison, so sticking poison on him provides consistent damage. After sticking poison, it is a simple matter to keep everyone alive and let poison do its thing. Riku also gets Reflect on it to prevent it from healing itself using a star curtain. Unfortunately, when the thing is running low on HP, it uses its big AoE attack Photon Wings. This takes Riku out, and before anyone gets a turn to get her back up, it dies of poison damage. So, Riku, once again the MVP thanks to her Reflect and general use as a healer and buffer, lost XP credit by being dead. Oh well. And now we come to the ruins of the city of Zanarkand. RNGesus is emotional, seeing his former home destroyed. Riku realizes she is running out of time, so she tries to convince Yuna to give up her pilgrimage, but Yuna is steadfast. However, in the midst of her embrace with Riku, she drops a sphere, and RNG sees it. He picks it up and gives it a listen. It's a farewell message to everybody in the party, recorded during their break at the travel agency on the Mihen High Road. Now we see the intro cutscene to the game. The story has come full circle, and the narration gimmick from RNG ends here as well. Not much happens here, just friends sitting by the fire resting, gathering their strength, before a final push towards the end of the road. And afterwards, now it's nighttime, and the team have to cross a series of ruined buildings towards the Blitzball stadium. The encounters here are basically the same as in the cave, so nothing really new. After reaching the stadium, a ghost is waiting and greets them. He examines Yuna and sees that she is at the end of her pilgrimage, inviting her further inside. The battles inside the stadium are a much different story. They are mostly made up of constructs, along the lines of the one seen in Bavel and the Defender X-Boss, as well as zombie soldiers, again similar to those seen in Bavel. The Defender constructs are extremely hardy and very much not worth the time needed to defeat them. The Kiki constructs are easier to kill, but they are also incredibly dangerous if they are the last enemies standing in a battle, as they will eject party members. And the zombies, especially the ones with flamethrowers, just do such high damage they aren't worth the trouble for risk of a party wipe. So once again, fleeing is the right call to get through this area safely. Honestly, grinding for XP isn't really necessary at this point, as long as the party is strong enough to beat the next few bosses. There are more ghosts waiting further in the Blitzball stadium, including the ghost of Seymour as a child with his mother. Braska and his entourage are there as well, in particular showing that Auron went through the same struggle with Braska that they are going through now with Yuna. He wanted to save Braska, but couldn't think of a solution. The Cloister of Trials in Zanarkand is one of the easier ones, as it's really just a memory game. You step on little white lights on the ground, and it lights up a Tetris piece in the floor. The goal is to step on only the ones pictured on the TV in the back of the room. If you step on the wrong one, it resets the puzzle. After solving the puzzle once in the entrance room, you have to solve it several more times for each of the temples you visited until now. It just takes a little time and trial and error. After finishing the cloister, it plays a little chiptune, then a boss appears in the center. This is the Spectral Keeper, a much harder boss than the previous Sanctuary Keeper. I tried fighting him blind, and it was over in a flash. He just wiped my party out with counterattacks faster than I could blink. I tried a couple times using spacing out and buffing to gain an advantage, but Berserk was getting me killed. So once again, back to the drawing board for a solid strategy that works within my meager means. And this is what I found. First, needed a little prep. I went out into the world and got Riku's overdrive ready in advance. There are nifty little teleporting pads on the ground, so I used them to get back to the area with the easier cave enemies before the stadium. I checked the equipment I had and also who had what abilities, and I discovered that Kimahri had the perfect alignment of what I needed. He has an equipment with Berserk Ward, which should make it a lot less likely for him to get Berserk from the boss. He also has the ability Provoke, which means the boss will look at him and attack him every turn. So Kimahri volunteered for tank duty, and everybody else's job is to support him and deal damage. Starting out, Kimahri uses Provoke, and Riku uses Mix to create Super Mighty G, using a Fire Gem and a Light Curtain. This gives Protect, Shell, Haste, and Regen to the whole party. After that, Auron starts using Cheer to maximize physical defense, and Kimahri just uses Defend when the boss is about to attack. While Kimahri is eating attacks, the other party members are on the opposite side of the boss, away from its counterattacks. If a bomb shows up, they move out of the way to safety. Finally, damage is mostly coming from Riku using Water Gems. Other characters swap in and out to deal what little damage they can, and Kimahri just eats the counters. If he gets low on HP, whoever has a turn uses it to pop a potion on him and keep him healthy. Near the end of the fight, I bring in Yuna to use some Gospels, and they deal quite a bit of damage. It was slow, but pretty safe, and after a while, the fight finally came to an end with the Spectral Keeper going down. With no time for a break, the party go down the elevator and meet up with Lady Yuna Leska, the original summoner who defeated Sin 1,000 years ago. She gives Yuna a choice. Which one of her guardians will she have become the final Aeon? They see visions of the past, Braska, Jecht, and a younger Auron making this very same choice. And Auron painfully proclaims that it didn't change anything. The cycle continued. But RNG isn't convinced this is the end.
If you want everything, you'll end up with nothing.
But I want everything!
Despite his lack of persuasion skills, his passion and belief convince the others to take a chance, to change the ending to their story. And so they enter the final chamber where Unluckiest awaits Yuna's decision, and her choice is...
No one.
Yuna realizes at this moment that the only way forward is to break the tradition and forge a new path, which is really the theme of this whole game, isn't it? Summarized beautifully in the grand speech Auron makes before the battle.
Your fate is in your hands!
And so, everybody comes to the same conclusion. This is the moment to conquer fate. Here we are, this is the big one. Unluckiest is another one of those extremely difficult bosses, though there are some tricks to her as well. First off, she doesn't actually deal very much damage with her standard attacks, but those attacks have a dispel effect on them, so any buffs on the party member being hit will be lost. And she alternates between this weak dispel attack and casting the spell Absorb for a lot more damage and some healing on her. For the first form, the solution I came up with was similar to the Spectral Keeper. Kimahri tanked to keep the annoying dispel to a minimum. Whenever Unluckiest was coming up in the turn order and was scheduled to use her basic attack, Kimahri would use the ability Guard. This acts like a Paladin or Knight's cover in other Final Fantasy games, where he jumps in front of whoever is supposed to be hit and takes the hit instead. Using this, I kept the other two party members buffed for a longer period, while I only had to worry about Kimahri. Absorb was an issue in terms of incoming damage, so a lot of potions were needed to heal through that. And worse, Unluckiest loves to counterattack anybody who does an offensive action against her with an appropriate status effect. Blind for physical attacks, and Silence for magic. This was yet another thing that needed to be dealt with every turn. So I decided that since Lulu can fill both roles equally well, she would alternate between physical hits and magic. That way, she can have both Blind and Silence on her and get them both removed with one cast of Isuna. Riku has Isuna, heals, and also haste, so she basically did all of the supporting by herself. This was not a fast strategy. It took quite a long time, as Lulu only ever did somewhere in the range of 1,000 damage per hit. It took around 20 minutes, but eventually the first form went down to 1,000 little cactuar needles. Now comes the second form, which has a much more sinister problem to deal with, Zombie. Immediately after coming out, Unluckiest uses Hellbiter, which gives the entire party Zombie. So nobody can be healed as long as this effect is active. Worse, Unluckiest now casts healing spells on zombied party members to damage them. Now, she also uses her Dispelling basic attack as a counter against players that deal damage to her. But other than that, the strategy was much the same. Kimahri keeps using Guard to eat the basic attacks, while Lulu goes on the offensive. Riku also helps out damage with Use, but she has to stay focused on getting Zombie off of anybody close to death so they can be healed. Another 20 minutes of this, and Yuna brings out Bahamut to push her next phase. Phase 3 is the most dangerous. She continues using Hellbiter, quite frequently in fact, to get Zombie on the whole team. She still heals them to deal damage, but she now also uses a move called Mind Blast, which inflicts Curse and does a hell of a lot of damage. Curse is especially nefarious because it prevents using Overdrive, even if the Overdrive meter is full. And she loves to put this effect on Aeons. Poor Bahamut missed his window to use Mega Flare because of this. Her last dangerous move is called Mega Death, which is instant death to all characters in the party. However, death is not effective against anybody afflicted with Zombie, so keeping people with Zombie on the field at all times is imperative. Yuna cycles through her Aeons as well to try and deal as much damage as she can while they are still available to use. Unluckiest loves to use Osmos as her first action against an Aeon, and that usually maxes out their overdrive meter, so every Aeon gets their one shot to deal a lot of damage before being overwhelmed. This certainly made this phase go a lot faster than it could have, as every Aeon got a solid bit of damage in. After all the Aeons were done, Unluckiest was down to about 20% of her remaining HP, but now we had to grind that down with much weaker attacks, and keep everybody alive through constant instant death effects. One particularly scary moment had both RNGesus and Wakka go down to Mega Death, and Auron be the only one left, and he had only about 100 HP. And then he used a Mega Phoenix to revive the others, but that killed him in the process. It was slow, and with many close calls. It took about another 20 minutes to win, even with Aeon speeding it up significantly. All in all, over an hour of constant battle to take down this real doozy of a boss fight. But slow and steady wins the race, and Lulu got in the last hit with her little cactuar buddy. Unluckiest fades away, cursing such a cruel fate that a party of upstart adventurers can so brazenly destroy the only hope Spira has to defeat sin. Yuna is in disbelief, but RNGesus is confident that they can find another way to beat Sin. Upon exiting the ruins of the Blitzball Stadium, RNGesus sees Sin there waiting. He silently assures his father that the end is coming. He will find a way to end this. On the airship, they start spitballing ideas for how to defeat Sin. Auron suggests that they use the one piece of knowledge they know: Sin is jacked. And Yuna steps out onto the bridge and meets her Uncle Sid for the first time. Honestly, I totally spaced that this was the first time they saw each other, as Yuna never rode the airship back during the Bevel chapter. RNGesus finds Yuna upstairs and talks to her for ideas, and Kimahri suggests that they speak to Maester Micah and see what he knows. That's one plan figured out. When RNGesus goes back downstairs to tell the team, they also have something to share. Riku, or maybe Waka, or was it Lulu, came up with the idea to play the Hymn of the Faith in order to pacify Sin. They know that Jecht has a particular affinity for that song due to an interaction they had back under the ice in Macalania. So, in order to increase the odds that they can actually approach and do some damage to Sin, they use the hymn to lower his guard. RNGesus is on board, so with two plans in mind, now they use the airship to fly to their first destination, Bevel, to confront Maester Micah. At first, the guards are still ready for a fight, but before it can get bloody, Shalinda of all people shows up to defuse the situation. I haven't really mentioned this character yet in this playthrough, as I honestly find her kind of irritating, but Shalinda is a particularly pious follower of Yevon. She randomly became the captain of the guard, it seems. I guess she lied on her resume or something, since she's clearly unqualified for the position. Micah called off the manhunt for Yuna for unknown reasons, so they ask Shalinda to arrange an audience with him. And an audience they have, where they ask if he knows anything at all about how to defeat Sin. But all he can say is that all hope is lost with the loss of Yunalesca and the final Aeon. He does give some valuable information about who Yu Yevon is though, the mysterious puppeteer controlling Sin, and then Maester Micah allows himself to fully die and disappears. Bahamut appears and invites Yuna and RNGesus to convene with him. There, they learn even more about Yu Yevon, what he is, where he came from, and how to defeat him. Yu Yevon was a summoner from Zanarkand, who is constantly summoning and using Sin as his armor. He creates Sin by possessing the final Aeon and transforming it. The only way to defeat Sin is to destroy Yu Yevon from inside Sin. Bahamut also asks Yuna to summon her Aeons during the final moments without really explaining why. He also explains again to RNGesus that when Sin is defeated, the dream will come to an end, and he understands the implication. But he continues to hide what it means from Yuna, who is clearly picking up that something is wrong. Before they leave Bevel, they ask Shalinda to convince as many people as she can to sing the hymn when the airship starts the battle. I guess she has a lot of followers on social media or something. The only things left in the main story are to beat a boss battle with Sin, then go to the last dungeon. But before that, with the newly acquired airship, the entire map is available to travel freely, so now is the time to start collecting all that delectable loot around the world, with the most tasty prizes being the Celestial Weapons, the ultimate weapons for each of our 7 heroes. And so the journey begins, with the grand prize being the 7 Celestial Weapons. The first task to that end is to get the Celestial Mirror, as none of the weapons can be obtained or upgraded without it. So first stop, Macalania Woods. Upon landing in Lake Macalania, the party runs south back into the woods and then onto a newly formed glowing path of light. There is a path blocked by some rando here, and they won't move for some reason. Back in the first area of the woods, there is a family, a mother and son, waiting for the father to arrive. Going a few screens away, the father can be found, and he apparently got lost, so he gets sent back to where his family is waiting. Except now the son is missing too, but make sure to talk to the mother twice. If you don't, you won't hear that the son has gone and the quest won't progress. The son is back on the path the person was blocking earlier, standing next to a glowing bulb of some kind. And interacting with this spot turns the cloudy mirror, obtained from Remium Temple's Chocobo race way back in part 3, into the Celestial Mirror. This spot is also where all the weapons will be upgraded from this point on. Since we happen to be in the neighborhood, the first weapon on the docket for upgrading is Kimahri's, as it requires playing the butterfly game in Macalania Woods. There are 2 games, one in each of the long, winding paths in Macalania Woods. They are increased in difficulty since the first time through the area, but they aren't like hard or anything. There is some trial and error required with dodging red butterflies, since they can be a little awkward to judge distance with the bad camera angle. It took a couple tries, but the nice thing is after you activate the butterfly game, random encounters are turned off until you leave the area. It took a total of about 10 minutes to get both games down and collect the prize, the Saturn Sigil. I'm going to go ahead and rank the 7 sigils in terms of how much of a pain I consider them to get. If you remember from part 3, I actually already have one, the Sun Sigil, from the Chocobo training minigame in the Calmlands, and so I'll go ahead and rank that one as well right now. For the Saturn Sigil and the Butterfly minigame, I give it a 6 out of 7. Not terribly difficult, but can be a pain sometimes. If you just really cannot get the positioning of the red butterflies, you might have to retry this a bunch of times, which sucks. But you aren't really in danger as the random battles are super easy. Now for the Sun Sigil and the Chocobo training minigame. This one I give a 5 out of 7. I know this will get some flack from people, but I really don't think it's that hard. And I'll go over later why I think most of the others are harder, but the biggest thing about this game is that you can just keep trying until you get it, and once you get into the groove of it, you'll have an easier time dodging birds, which is really the biggest thing. Get as many balloons as you can and dodge birds, and don't worry about your actual finish time. That's all. Before continuing on with the next weapon, I got all the airship password stuff out of the way. Doing so unlocks a bunch of secret locations, including the dungeons Baj Temple and Omega Ruins, and also Riku's celestial weapon God Hand. I should also mention the Phantom Bangle armor for Lulu, as it is a serious upgrade for her defensively and comes in handy later. After picking all that stuff up, the next weapon to work on is Yuna's, as there is a lot of steps involved for her, and she gets a lot more than just her weapon in the process. First stop, Xanarkand. As I'm sure you'll recall, there was a Cloister of Trials there, but unlike the others, the Destruction Sphere was never found. It is actually impossible to do before getting the airship and making a return trip. The Destruction Sphere requires stepping on all the white square Tetris pieces without triggering any of the other shapes. Before I can actually use this, a certain deadly boss will need to be handled, and so I need to prepare for that first. The next destination was Jose High Road, as there are some enemies there that drop armor with the Stone Ward effect. I also took this time to make sure I captured every enemy here, which is a step in the progress of another weapon down the line. I never did get the Stone Ward armor, but I got bored and went back to Calmlands to try there instead. Another enemy there drops the same thing, and conveniently you need to catch all the enemies from the Calmlands for Yuna's weapon anyway. So, 2 birds, 1 stone, I caught those guys and everything else I was missing from the Calmlands, then picked up Nirvana from the Monster Arena. After fighting the enemies that dropped the Stone Ward armor in the arena, I got super lucky and picked up a Stone Ward armor for Waka on the first try. Sweet. Time to go try this boss on for size. The boss is called Geos Gaino, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and lives in the optional area Baj Temple. And unfortunately, his boss battle is underwater, so only Waka, Riku, and RNGesus can participate. I went and tried to fight him, but I got my ass handed to me. The stone on his punches wasn't even the biggest issue, everything about him was tough. I figured this can wait, so I went to do something else real quick. Another item needed for Yuna's sigil is the Blossom Crown, and to get it you need to catch all the monsters in Mount Gagazet. Well, I caught almost all of them the first time through, but I missed a very specific one, the Grenade. They have a ton of HP and blow up after only 3 hits, so dealing enough damage to kill them was an issue at the time. But now, with Focus and Yuna's Blizzaga, it's a lot more doable, so I managed to catch one and finish up my monster roster in Mount Gagazet. Doing so provides the reward, the Blossom Crown, from the old man at the Monster Arena. I will need this item to get the Magus Sisters later, but before I can do that, I need to get the other optional Aeons first. The easiest one available right now is Yojimbo, located in the Cavern of the Stolen Faith, which we have never been to, not even once. During some dungeon crawling in there, the party encounter an enemy called a Ghost, and defeat it with relative ease. But the thing drops a very important item, armor with the effect No Encounters for Waka. Again, first try, what absolute bonkers luck. At the end of the cavern is an unsent summoner, the very same one who Lulu was the guardian for. She summons Yojimbo to attack the party, so they go into action to battle him. The battle is going quite well, but, well, when he gets his overdrive, he immediately uses the ability Zanmato, which is a party wipe. Knowing that that is a thing that can happen, on the second attempt there is no holding back, and Yuna just smashes him with Gospels. Yojimbo requires a little bit of haggling in order to actually get access to him, but the party has enough cash on hand and managed to secure a contract. First Aeon secured. Next up, we have to go back to that damn boss in the water, Gaius Gaino. Not playing nice this time, I got Riku, Waka, and RNGesus all charged up with their overdrive in advance. When battle begins, Riku uses Mix with 2 Wings of Discovery. The effect of this is called Trio of 9999 and makes every damage instance deal 9,999 damage. Riku gets taken out shortly after this, but it doesn't matter. Once RNGesus gets his turn, he finally does something useful and uses Slice and Dice on the boss. With each hit doing 9,999 and hitting 6 times, it was enough to kill the boss straight up. Once the boss is dead, Bodge Temple can be explored finally. In the water near the boss is Lulu's weapon, the Onion Knight, just sitting in a chest. Going inside the temple proper is a small puzzle with a bunch of statues. To open the door further in, each of these statues needs to be interacted with, and that means finding the destruction sphere at each temple along the way. For each temple is a statue, and if even one destruction sphere is missing, it won't open. For anybody who might play this game in the future, please, for the love of God, make sure you don't miss the destruction spheres on your first run through. Some temples, such as Besaid and Macalania, are essentially impossible to get back to later in the game as dark aeons block the entrance. You have been warned. After getting inside the inner chamber, Yuna finds another faith. This one is for the Aeon Anima, the very same Aeon that Seymour summoned. It turns out Anima is a faith created from Seymour's mother as an attempt to give him power. However, when Seymour got his hands on such power, it just made him want even more, culminating in his lust to become sin and destroy all life. Seymour's mother regrets her role in creating this monster, so she lends Yuna her power to stop him. 2 Aeons down, now it is finally time to go back to Remium Temple and get the last optional Aeon using the Flower Scepter and Blossom Crown. The last Aeon is the Magus Sisters, and since we already have the required items, it's just a matter of going to visit their faith in Remium Temple. And now that Yuna has every Aeon, the last step is to use them to defeat Belgamine's Aeons. One last romp through summon battles, but these ones are a total joke to be honest. First up is Belgamine's Yojimbo, completely obliterated by the Magus Sisters. Next up is Belgamine's Anima, completely obliterated by the Magus Sisters. Finally is Belgamine's Magus Sisters, one shot by Anima's Overdrive Oblivion. That was really fast. After all her Aeons are defeated, Belgamine gifts Yuna the Moon Sigil, then disappears to the afterlife, her task in this world complete. And now Yuna can finally upgrade her weapon to max. As for the Moon Sigil, I'll rank this one a 3 out of 7. This is a big pain in the butt with too many steps. Yes, you get a whole pile of other good stuff for Yuna in the process, with the optional Aeons being overpowered. But capturing fiends in 2 of the more difficult areas, and then fighting an optional boss that can one-hit KO you and requires a specific party to battle? And that isn't even mentioning the fact that you can lock yourself out of getting Anima if you missed a Destruction Sphere in Besaid or Macalania. Big ouch. After finishing Nirvana, I also went to pick up Kimari's actual weapon, the Spirit Lance. This is located in the Thunder Plains and just requires following a ghostly cactuar. With the no encounters armor, it's a piece of cake. But speaking of the Thunder Plains... Okay, time for a rant. Lightning dodging is by far the hardest task in this game, and the most tedious. Why is the number of consecutive lightning dodges 200? Isn't that a bit excessive? Even 100 feels like it takes ages. Anyway, using the strategy I'm showing on screen right now, the actual act of dodging lightning itself isn't actually hard, but it is stressful, because there's always that lingering worry that if I mess up now, I'll have to start over from zero, and it just gets worse and worse the closer you get to the end. Plus, you have to keep count while doing it, because if you dodge too few, then you might mess up on the walk to the travel agency to get your reward. The amount of time it took to do this all in one go was about 10 minutes. It doesn't sound that long, but that's 10 minutes of being on constant high alert. Anyway, if it isn't obvious, this is my pick for most difficult Celestial weapon. If it weren't for the fact that it is completely amazing for Lulu, and Lulu is one of my most important party members, I might have considered skipping it. But alas, I put in the time and I got it done in one try, so that makes 4 weapons done now, 3 to go. The next weapon on the list is Auron's Masamune. This requires catching a bunch of monsters in different areas. The actual requirement is 10 total of either area completion bonuses or species completion bonuses, with any combination being fine. Of the two, area completion is generally easier, as you only need one of each fiend from the area to count. Species completion requires more, and you might have to catch them from harder areas. So I went with all area completion, with the areas I ended up going for being Besaid, Kilika, Mihen High Road, Mushroom Rock, Jose High Road, Thunder Plains, Macalania Woods, Cavern of the Stolen Faith, Calmlands, and Mount Gagazet. Calmlands and Mount Gagazet are both required for Yuna, so those are a given, and many of the others are low enough level to be simple. It should be mentioned that none of these require you to defeat the actual boss fiend the old man creates, just unlock them. After you unlock the 10th one, the last one from me being Mushroom Rock, you get the Mars Sigil as a reward. I'll rank this one a 4 out of 7, right in the middle. Most of the areas you have to capture fiends from are stupidly easy and you aren't in danger, and a couple overlap with Yuna, but you will have to expose yourself to danger in some form to get enough in the end. So not extremely hard, but also not extremely easy. Up next is Riku. Riku's sigil is all located on Bikanel Island and involves hunting a bunch of cactuars in various locations around the island. If you have a no encounters armor, this quest is a piece of cake. It took me less than an hour to do the whole quest, and I actually fought them all. You don't even have to if you want to do the bare minimum, as you can fail all of the minigames and still get the sigil. I did work hard to try and win them all though, only failing one minigame along the way, and defeated all the cactuars to get XP. Generally, that meant summoning the Magus Sisters, since cactuars are quite a pain to kill in the conventional sense and deal a lot of damage. The Mercury Sigil is definitely my pick for easiest. You can essentially no effort this by just turning off encounters and intentionally failing the cactuar minigames. It still takes like an hour to complete, but all you're doing is wandering the desert for a while. No danger whatsoever. If you actually want to complete the cactuar minigames, it is a step up, but since that is optional, I won't count it towards the ranking. Alright, so you want to know the real reason this took such a long ass time? Well, here it is, Wakka's weapon, which requires playing Blitzball. A lot of Blitzball. The general idea is that you need to get all of Wakka's overdrives from Blitzball winnings before his sigil will appear, and they are given out as rewards for, in order, attack reels from a tournament, status reels from a league, Aurochs reels from a tournament, and finally, Jupiter Sigil from a league. A league is 10 games, no more, no less, and a tournament is either 2 or 3 games, depending on how you get seeded. Since a league is always running at all times, and you have to finish one to reset the prizes, you have to do a minimum of 4 leagues to get everything. One to get the first tournament with attack reels to pop, then another which has status reels as the reward, then another to get the tournament with Aurochs reels to pop, and finally a last one to get the Jupiter Sigil as the reward. A total of 44 to 46 games. Each game takes about 10 minutes on the fast end. Absolutely bananas. Now, you can forfeit some games to speed this process up. If you're on a dud league with no prize worth working towards, you can just forfeit every game. Though even that takes effort because the AI is so stupid it can't score a goal without you helping it. And it needs to score a goal on you before the forfeit option appears. But at least with a bad goalie like RNG's, it's hard for them to miss. But you still need to win the vast majority of those 44 to 46 games to finish all this, so it takes many hours to complete this task. Anyway, winning games is a piece of cake with RNG's, as Jackshot is completely OP, and at some point I even picked up Nimruk as my goalie. This removes the only opposing goalie that can actually block shots well, so after that every game is over in a flash. I also want to shout out Brother, as his absurd stats and movement speed make getting the ball to RNG's a complete joke. It took somewhere in the 7 or 8 hour range to get this all done, but I finally got Wakka's weapon, the World Champion, maxed out. The Jupiter Sigil is my pick for rank 2 out of 7 for hardest to obtain. No, Blitzball is not a difficult minigame to win, but 8 hours? You've got to be kidding me. That is significantly longer than all the others added together. What a pain. Even forfeiting matches didn't reduce the time all that much. With all the celestial weapons obtained, this long chapter of optional content finally comes to a close. I'll make a minor mention of the Omega Ruins, as I didn't spend any time there. I just went in, picked up the Albed Primer, and left. The only thing worth getting there in a challenge like this is Kimari's strongest overdrive, Nova, but it would be way too hard to get to and kill Omega. So just skipping that. Mark the Omega Ruins off as incomplete for this run. Time for the final showdown with Sin. Yeehaw! To begin the final battle, the airship starts broadcasting the Hymn of the Faith at full volume. This draws Sin near, and the party runs upstairs to get ready. Sid gets his biggest gun ready to rip a hole open in Sin and let them inside. Out on the airship deck, the hymn can be heard, and apparently, Shalinda really did have a lot of social media followers, because the people are singing along. Before the battle can begin, Sin decides to show off his true anime power and makes a big spirit bomb that alters the shape of the Earth's atmosphere. Then he fires it in 6 directions, carving a hole in space each direction, which naturally explodes a few seconds later. And this really was just a show of power because literally nobody is hurt by this, just annoyed. Sin starts pulling the airship closer and the battle finally starts. At first, Sin is really far away, so only Waka and Magic can hit him. Luckily, Yuna is the strongest attacker already with her Gospels, but RNGesus or Riku can order Sid to get closer, like in the Evray battle. This is a trap, and when I attempted to do this, I immediately got wiped the next time Sin got a turn. It was brutal. So, swearing to never get close to him ever again, on my next attempt I stuck with a turtle casting setup. After all is said and done, my basic build is the 3 ladies, Yuna, Riku, and Lulu. Yuna is by far the biggest damage source, with Lulu helping her out with focus. She also does some decent damage after focus is maxed out. And Riku is on support, as usual, giving haste and heals. After enough damage is dealt to the left fin, the airship shows off its big guns and blows it clean off. Now, onto the other side. And this is a straight up repeat with no changes. Just letting the girls do what they do best and blowing it up with Gospels. I did swap in the others to get some XP before the end though. All in all, the fins took about 10 minutes together. Now, the airship is out of juice for the big guns, so the party decides to jump down on their own. Naturally, Lulu goes first because she's queen. This battle is now a repeat of a boss back in Kilika, the Sin spawn that likes to use poison and hide in a shell. Would it surprise you to hear that I beat this guy using magic from Yuna and Lulu? And it went even faster because it's weak to fire. When it was low, I did swap in Waka however, since Yuna has a very pathetic HP pool and I wanted to avoid putting her in danger. Now, the final part of this battle is against the core, and this thing basically just charges up Gravija over and over again. Gravija, of course, is gravity magic, so it only does percentage HP of all targets. It can't actually deal lethal damage. So how does it win then? Well, with counterattacks of course. Whenever it takes damage, it counters with a magic spell that hits every party member for modest damage. For me, it was in the range of 500 or so. After a Gravija, that could certainly be lethal, but with some heals in between, it's a non-factor. Since physical damage is garbage against this thing, I brought Yuna back to continue her nuking. This phase took about 15 minutes. After the core is destroyed, Sin comes crashing down into the ocean near Bavel, and everybody came out of this with a lot of sphere levels. This was when Yuna finally got enough levels to finish the spiral and reach the center. Ultima, the most powerful black magic.
Such devastation! This was not my intention!
There is one more battle against Sin left before the end. This time, face to face. The team assembles on the deck of the airship again, and it only takes a couple of turns for Sin to approach close enough for melee strikes. The gimmick of this battle, though, is that he is charging up overdrive, and if he gets it, instant game over. There's no way to mitigate it, you just lose. Which means there's a hard and fast time limit. Not knowing that it was that severe, I attempted the battle blind and got hit with Giga Graviton. My battle strategy was basically the same as before. Yuna on nukes, and some extra damage from Riku with shining gems. Ultima did a lot of damage, but it's also kinda slow, so my second attempt I switched back to Gospels. The second attempt was looking good, but then he wiped my party by turning all 3 of them to stone at the same time. So, the third attempt, this time I was not having this nonsense. I summoned the Magus Sisters. And it was looking spicy for them too. Mindy and Cindy did pretty awful damage on their turns, but Sandy, she knows how to get it done. Razia did roughly 50,000 damage per hit, which is 1/3 of Sin's max HP, so yeah, 3 uses of that ended the fight. Go strongest Aeon, I guess. Now we come to the final dungeon of Final Fantasy X, Inside Sim. In the first area, I actually decided to do some battles to get a little bit of last minute XP, but after a certain point I put the no encounters armor back on. The fights just take too long and are too frequent, and I'm in a hurry, man. Papa Ject is waiting. But another little pest decides to poke his head in before the real final boss can show up, Seymour. This guy really can't take a hint. Except this is by far the easiest of the battles with Seymour. Kind of a disappointment considering the music is so awesome. Lulu has an armor that absorbs 3 out of 4 elements, and so does Yuna. And then Riku has Victorious, which nullifies the damage to 0. So that means my girl team once again is front and center, since Seymour literally can't hurt them with his basic spells. The only thing to watch out for is his cast of Ultima, which I mitigated using stamina tonics to double max HP and got max focus stacks. Damage was once again Yuna and Lulu with nukes and Riku with shining gems. Honestly, a very easy battle. The next area is the City of the Dead, and I just sprinted through it. The end is too close now to slow down. So now, here I am at the last save point in the game at the Tower of the Dead, ready to rock and roll. Before the fight, I want to show off the stats and available moves each character had at the very end. I'll just let this scroll past, you can pause if you want to see in more detail. The last area before the boss is a rather annoying little minigame where you have to pick up 10 shining orbs while avoiding spikes of ice. Touching a spike causes a random encounter, and the camera is constantly rotating. What a weird thing to do right before the final battle. Anyway, after being teleported to the Blitzball arena from Xanarkand, except way more badass looking, the party sees Jecht standing there waiting. RNGesus and Auron have their last goodbyes, and the final battle begins. So, I tried doing this the hard way, as usual, going in mostly blind, just using whatever strategy has worked up until now. In this case, Girl Party, with Riku on support, Yuna and Lulu on damage. Yuna casting Ultima would consistently kill the pagodas, at first. Though later on, they got increasingly higher HP pools, which made deleting them difficult. The damage from Jecht's basic attacks was actually stupidly high and would consistently one-shot Yuna or Riku. Eventually, I remembered stamina tonics and popped one of those, but even with a stamina tonic, Yuna had barely 3000 HP. Not enough. And Riku kept dying before I could get her properly set up. Then there was Jecht Beam, which would consistently turn someone to stone. This also removes haste, which is a huge annoyance. And whenever he gets overdrive, Triumphant Grasp will apply zombie to whoever is the unfortunate soul he grabs, assuming they survive to begin with. So all this to say, I was never in a very commanding position during this battle. It was always recovering from whatever horrible thing happened. I even tried using Aeons to burst him down, but the damage just wasn't enough to finish him. In the second phase, he also routinely gets multiple turns in a row, thanks to the pagodas speeding him up. If those multiple turns include a sword swipe or ultimate Jecht shot, well, that's the end of the story. Which is exactly what happened after roughly 45 minutes straight of battle. So naturally, my next attempt was going to be Maximum Cheese. Anybody familiar with the no sphere grid run of this game probably knows this, but Riku is really stupidly broken. So I used Mix, put together 2 Wings of Discovery, got Trio of 9999 on my party, which included RNGesus and Waka, both with Max Overdrive, and then proceeded to win the fight with 10 minutes of total battle, including getting all that set up. Attack Reels won the first phase, Slice and Dice plus a Fire Gem from Riku won the second. A total joke. And so, the real final boss being taken down, it was time for the victory lap. Yu Yevon and all the Aeons. This battle can't be lost, since everybody is rocking auto life at all times, so it's really just a matter of fighting until you win. You battle each Aeon in a row, in whichever order you want. I just went down the list from Veil 4 to Magisisters. Veil 4, Ifrit, Ixion, Shiva, Bahamut, Anima, and Yojimbo all got one-shot by Ultima. The Magisisters did survive, but were quickly taken out by a second cast. Finally, Yu Yevon himself. This fight he will continuously hurt himself with Gravija, so if you really want to, you can just stand there until he's low and kill him with anything. But I wanted to speed this up, so I used the Trio of 9999 trick again to just end it as soon as possible. And that's it, Final Fantasy X completed with a randomized sphere grid path. Except, that isn't really a satisfying ending, now is it? Cheesing out the final boss with a broken trick? No way, man. I didn't want to accept that either. So I thought about it long and hard. How could I beat this guy legit with the abilities that I have on hand? And it came to me in a flash of brilliance. Yuna isn't the key after all. She was dragging me down with her terrible HP pool. Riku as well. She's MVP of this run, don't get me wrong, but this last attempt would put her on the sidelines after all. No, I needed a party well suited to this battle defensively, so I went to work putting that together. Alright, I'm going to need you to please forgive me. I did actually make one concession to make this work. I removed the ban on Customize. Yes, I actually did forgo using Customize for this entire run up to this moment. I only used armor that I obtained by random chance or from shops. But I wanted to make sure I had the maximum opportunity to win this thing in the most satisfying way, so I made this one change to my rules. I customized armor of my 3 main members, Auron, Waka, and Lulu. Waka, I had an armor with HP plus 10% ready to roll, so I just stuck Stoneproof on it and called it a day. Auron also had a similar armor with Zombie Ward as a cherry on top, so I stuck Stoneproof on there as well and some more HP for good measure. Finally, my last member would be Lulu, and I made sure to give her a similar piece of armor with HP increases and Stoneproof. Now, my party had very respectable HP levels, enough that Lulu and Auron would top 9,000 after a stamina tonic, and they would be immune to Ject Beam's stone effects. The last factor here is something I actually haven't mentioned yet, but both Waka and Auron have access to the ability Use from Riku's grid. Auron picked it up during the random side questing for celestial weapons. With Use, I can haste the whole party with a Chocobo Wing, buff their HP with a stamina tonic, and give Protect and Shell with light and lunar curtains. Auron also has access to Cheer and Lulu Focus, so I can max out those respective stats as well. And of course, we can't forget how strong Waka's Overdrive is. So, with this setup, I went to work, and it took a pretty long time to get the party into position with all their buffs ready to go actually. But after assembling my team and getting them buffed and in position, it was mostly a battle of little pricks. Lulu deals roughly 2,000 damage with physical attacks, Waka a little less than that, and Auron basically is negligible. I completely ignored the pagodas for the most part. Sometimes Waka would kill them with his overdrive, but otherwise they were left alone. Their healing isn't such a big deal, and even Jecht's overdrive is pretty easy to tank with 9,000 HP. There was one time I forgot it gives zombie though, because I stupidly went and used a Mega Elixir and let Auron die from it. That was a big whoopsie. But after recovering from that little boo-boo, it was just a matter of keeping things under control and slowly picking away at his HP. The second phase was more dangerous, since his sword swipes hit the full party, and it was actually pretty close to a party wipe once when he hit multiple times in a row. Also, during the second phase, I realized something I stupidly forgot about, Shining Gems. That allowed Auron and Waka to deal a hell of a lot higher damage per turn, as they hit for 5,000 or more per hit. Believe it or not, this worked, and I eventually took him down. It took about 40 minutes of battle from start to finish. Now that is a much more satisfying conclusion, wouldn't you say? The final boss defeated with a party using legitimate defensive and offensive tactics. Despite their miserable stats, everything came together in the end, and no mixed cheese. Well, this is the end of the challenge. Honestly, I didn't expect it to be quite as difficult as it turned out to be in the end. Along the journey, I always made sure to follow the rules and roll a die whenever there was a fork, even if every path led somewhere I've already been. This is why many characters ended up going around in circles and getting no stats from their levels. I would also roll a die if there was a lock sphere and treated it as if it were a fork in the path, with one big exception: Ultima. I decided that rolling the dice 4 times in a row to break those 4 level 4 locks was a waste of the big chance to get Ultima, so I just let her roll through. She earned it by going through that long spiral of nodes anyway. In the end, everybody was in pretty bad shape for endgame. Even Yuna and Lulu, who were the highest in terms of raw stats, were still underpowered. Yuna in endgame in a normal run will do at least 9,999 damage with Holy, and same with Lulu and her Gospels, but they were doing much less than that. Obviously, the physical fighters were in even worse shape, with the strongest being Wakka, but he did even less damage than Lulu with his hits. Yuna was strong enough to carry a lot of fights toward the end, but her HP pool being so bad made it difficult to keep her alive. That was why I decided to sideline her for the final battle. Auron, with access to Use and a much higher HP pool, was a better choice in the end. For my final thoughts, this was a fun but difficult challenge. The first part of the game felt pretty breezy. Nothing was a huge challenge until about Macalania. After that point, random battles started becoming much more dangerous, with home being particularly painful to get through, and bosses started taking a very long time to defeat, with turtle strategies being the mainstay. After about Mount Gagazet, battles were so time-consuming that I decided to avoid them altogether. The XP gained wasn't worth the time wasted, and that was when a solid strategy that abused boss weaknesses became a necessity just to stay alive. Knowing that Seymour could be poisoned and silenced, or that putting Reflect on the Sanctuary Keeper kept it from healing, were 100% necessary to win. And in that way, I think the run became pretty interesting. In a normal run, you could brute force all of that stuff. Your Wakka could roll in with attack reels and wipe a boss out right off the bat. But my Wakka did only a few thousand damage with attack reels, so there had to be a lot more thought put into how to keep things from getting out of hand. If you decide to take this challenge on yourself, be prepared to have the game difficulty spike on you pretty hard. It'll come out of nowhere and it'll be overwhelming, but resist the temptation to cheese your way through with Riku's Mix or Aeons. You might just learn some things about the way combat is designed in this game, and that will make you appreciate it more. Thanks for sticking all the way through this. This is my first completed challenge series, and I'm excited to try something new in the future. If you have any great ideas for a challenge run, in Final Fantasy or other games as well, shoot me a comment and I'll take a look. If you enjoyed this series, then hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my next challenge coming soon. Everybody, give Final Fantasy X another run yourself, and have a wonderful day.